Happy Saturday once again, everyone, to one and all. Welcome to episode 15 of the Winged Eagle podcast. Hope you guys are having an excellent month of December thus far, and we are on the road to the end of 2019. 2020 is upon us, and yeah, it's December, and December is December, and we all know what to expect usually in professional wrestling during this month. Not a whole lot going on, even when I was making my notes today. We're going to talk about this week of shows in WWE and AEW, but aside from that, not a ton of wrestling news to really get into tonight, so it's going to be kind of a fun, casual chat, and we're going to discuss the latest, run through Raw, SmackDown, NXT, AEW, preview, TLC, maybe even look ahead to the Royal Rumble. Talk about a lot of things and anything else you guys might want to bring up in the chat. So first and foremost, hello. Welcome to all of you again for hanging with me this Saturday. A little programming note, this coming Friday, the 13th, will be a special Friday edition of the Winged Eagle podcast. Will not be up here a week from today because the day after that is TLC. And I've got some personal obligations next Saturday, so this podcast will be coming one day early on Friday, same time, 3 p.m. Pacific. Let me make sure I can be heard over here in the... I want to apologize, too. If you noticed when I was doing the intro there, I had to stall a little bit. I had let out like 3 really big sneezes, and my eyes were watering, and my countdown was running down, and I had to be online here, and I had to kind of collect myself before I came up. So I apologize for that little 15-second delay there before you saw my mug. All right, we're looking good over here. Technical-wise, we can be seen, heard. Good amount of people here in the chat so far. What's going on? How Wheezy? Nice to have a moderator in here. Spaz Phoenix is back again with a lot of messages. Cool. And Jet the Hawk and McLean and chat site forums. What's going on? Stone Cold, Zane, Joey, Ian, Sam. Anybody hanging out here right now, thanks for watching and thanks for listening. Typical format in this episode, we're probably going to get into the wrestling news first. Not going to touch on much of Monday Night Raw for 2 reasons. Number one, the show was a pile of dog shit, not dog food, like we saw on SmackDown, but dog shit. And I've been doing Raw reviews lately on Monday nights. Kind of got burnout on doing the live reaction, so I'm taking the month of December off. And every night after Monday Night Raw, I'm coming up here and giving you guys a full review. Jury is still out in 2020 in the beginning of the year if I'm going to continue this trend or going back to the live reactions or maybe do a combination of both. Stay tuned for that. Haven't quite decided yet, but at least for right now, for December, I've been enjoying coming up here and talking about Monday Night Raw. So if you want any of my more detailed and elaborate opinions on Monday Night Raw, you can always check out the review that was up on Monday night. The link is in the upper right of the screen there. But anything else we talk about today concerning Monday Night Raw are only going to be about the 2 big angles, Seth Rollins and, I can't believe I'm saying this, Lana, Lashley, and Rusev. So that's all we're going to discuss in terms of Raw, but we'll get in more detail on AEW and NXT and last night's SmackDown and preview what we're looking at for TLC so far and a couple of really interesting matches, including Bray Wyatt and The Miz, which I think might have a different twist to it. And that's kind of caught us off guard because we thought it was going to be Daniel Bryan versus Bray Wyatt. And it's now turning into, and we're going to talk about this later, but one thing I like about what we saw last night on SmackDown in terms of that angle is that I was under the impression that Daniel Bryan versus The Fiend or Bray Wyatt was basically like a time-killing program for The Fiend, giving him a good quality opponent to work with for a pay-per-view, maybe 2, on his road to WrestleMania, because at this point, I think we can all agree The Fiend is likely going to stay champion until WrestleMania. For him to drop it prior to then would just be dumb. And we can, we can panic and freak out and have heart attacks over who he's going to face at WrestleMania another time. But at least for right now, I just kind of thought they would keep Bray Wyatt busy with just semi-decent quality opponents until we get to WrestleMania. But this Daniel Bryan storyline has taken a whole different turn now. Now you got The Miz involved, and he's now stepped in to get the match against Bray Wyatt at TLC. And it's offered up some really interesting possibilities for what we could see in that whole situation. So at least on Raw and SmackDown, that might be the one angle I'm most interested in. But, aside from the few bright spots here on those 2 shows, not a whole lot to talk about there. But AEW and NXT this week was really interesting, and the ratings were super fucking close. So we'll talk about that, and I'm going to open up here with just a little bit of wrestling news. Like I said, it isn't much, but a couple of things happened today. I want to do some Patreon shout-outs first, but before I do that, let me just go over here because I saw some super chats flying up in my peripherals over here. And Spaz Phoenix, as always, you're always in here paying for my WWE Network, dude. I appreciate it. Thanks for the $10, man. NXT is fighting the December is boring thing. Yim versus Kai next week, along with a Cruiserweight title match, triple threat number 1 contender match, and for the women's title, Baszler versus Ripley. Not too shabby. Yeah, that's not next week, though. I think that's December 18th. Aren't they planning all of that for December 18th, even the Cruiserweight title match? I could be wrong about that, but I thought Lio Rush and Garza was taking place on the 18th. That's going to be a loaded fucking show on the 18th. But that particular match I could be wrong about, but Adam Cole and Shayna Baszler both will have title defenses on the 18th, which I think is going to be the last live NXT for the year. I ran a little bit behind today getting my notes together. I had all sorts of shit going on today, so I was not able to look up what NXT's plans are for Christmas. Christmas Day is a Wednesday, so I think AEW is either not running a show or doing something taped, because as we'll talk about with them, that's going to be their last show of 2019. Apparently, they're building up Jericho versus Jungle Boy, which I have a lot of opinions on that too. So in terms of NXT, I don't know if they're going to try to tape something, air like a Christmas-themed show. I sincerely apologize for not having this information. If I'm going to come up here and do a podcast, I need to know this stuff, but I was running way behind today, so I apologize for that. But I do know the 18th is going to be a huge night for wrestling, and I think that's great. You know, not everything needs to be built up for a pay-per-view, and I'm going to talk about that too, but I saw a lot of people bitching about, like, giving away Baszler and Ripley for free. Who gives a fuck? It's a TV show. Remember back in the day on Monday Night Raw when you had Mick Foley and all sorts of guys winning the title on Monday Night Raw? That shit can be fun. There's nothing wrong with doing a title change or a title match on TV every now and then. They don't all have to be on pay-per-views. So we'll be talking a lot about that, and I think both shows, AEW and NXT, are setting us, the fans, up to have one fucking fun-ass night of wrestling on the 18th, a night that will probably likely be a lot more fun than the one on the 15th at TLC. So, like I said, we're going to be getting into all of that here this afternoon. Zane, thank you very much, man, for the $5. I appreciate that as well. Do you see an NXT Championship main event at WrestleMania 36? Right now, sitting here in December of 2019, I'm going to say no. I don't know what you could put together that would, you know, if Adam Cole is champion, even if he drops to somebody, I don't know. I'm going to go no on that. I think NXT should have a major presence at WrestleMania. But do you defend the title there? You're going to have a takeover the night before. So, you know, I'm going to say no on that right now, but who knows, man? WWE is really trying to make NXT not a developmental brand, you know, but an equal brand. And a lot of that is due to AEW. You know, even guys like Kenny Omega calling them developmental wrestlers and rookies and shit like that. WWE maybe wants to change that perception if that's what people think. So given their performance at Survivor Series, the very likely heavy amount of talent they're going to have and the presence they're going to have at the Royal Rumble, I think is going to be really big, and I would not rule out at all an NXT talent winning the Royal Rumble in the men's or the women's, because I've kind of got, you know, Baszler not being champion after that takeover, and if you still want to keep her like super duper strong and make believe her loss to Rhea Ripley never happened, best way to do that, have her win the Rumble and go into WrestleMania to face the champion. And you got Ronda Rousey coming back in, so I think an NXT girl, specifically Baszler, probably only Baszler, winning the Royal Rumble. On the men's side, could be anything, assuming they go with Roman Reigns and The Fiend for the Universal title. You got Brock's belt needs to be defended at WrestleMania. You could have that person win the Rumble, and that's where you can introduce a new person that doesn't have to be on the brand. You know, it can be a Matt Riddle. It can be a Keith Lee who's fucking on fire right now. So the cool thing about the Rumble this year is I think there's lots of options, and we'll probably get into a little bit that today as well. All right, I'm going to try to get into these Patreon shout-outs, but the Super Chats keep rolling in, so that's awesome. Austin Kinkle, thank you very much, dude. I appreciate it. Thanks for the $5. Do you think an NXT wrestler is going to win the Royal Rumble? I just said that. I'd love for Keith Lee to win it and face Brock. That literally just came out of my mouth, dude, and I did not even see your comment. But if it's going to be an NXT wrestler, I think Keith Lee's really the only option, with maybe a small chance for a Matt Riddle. But given the way Keith Lee, I've got a cat behind me in the shelf. Given the way Keith Lee has been used on television and how much of a monster he looks like, my money is kind of on Keith Lee right now. But yeah, I think an NXT talent needs to win one of the Rumbles. They don't need to win both, but one for sure, you would think, because that can really shake things up and introduce a new star, in the mix. Excuse me one second. Get out of here. There we go. Had to get my cat out of here. Boy, this is just like the live streams on Monday nights when they would be running around all the time, but they usually leave me alone during the podcast. But yeah, today might be a rough one with the animals. Anyway, let me get into these Patreon shout-outs here, and then we're going to jump into the news, talk a little bit about Raw, and then move on to NXT and AEW. Let me center myself back up here. There we go. Yeah, I moved everything around, camera and everything. Thanks a lot, Tito, little asshole. Anyway, all right. Again, thank you to everybody over the years that have been a supporter on Patreon. If you would like to do that, the link is in the description below. If you would like to support the channel in any way, this is what keeps the gears moving. This is what keeps the ball rolling. This is what pays for all of the expenses that it takes to have a podcast, and I appreciate everybody for really backing the channel for all these years. You guys are amazing. Thank you very much to Blake Moran, Claudio Clavedetcher, Brett Lukefield, Barry MK400, Domanian, Elwell Sr., Daniel Rodriguez, Jordan Karg, John Riffle, John Redifer, Josiah Blevins, welcome back, Keith Hammond, same to you, Keith Salyers, Michael Cuomo, Christian Collins, Mr. Steve, Nathan Walker, Steve Myers, and Zach, the Double Z TV, and I know for a fact that 50% of those names I pronounced incorrectly, so I apologize for any time you guys donate, and then I shout you out and I say your name wrong. Probably happens a lot, but I appreciate everybody's support through the Patreon page and, of course, in the Super Chat donations. You guys are awesome. Appreciate everything. Also, I want to let you guys know of a small schedule change. Now, most of you probably won't even notice this, but for those of you that really like to keep track of what I'm doing, in my last episode, I gave you guys a big list. I put it up here on the screen of my entire schedule for the month of December. Every podcast, every pay-per-view review, this day in history, and my big year-end Q&A coming up at the end of the year on December 30th, which luckily is a Monday, and we can do that right after Monday Night Raw. So that's the big video to close out 2019 in just a few weeks on December 30th. But I also have some This Day in Histories planned for December 17th and December 22nd, and I have a classic pay-per-view review that's going to be dropping on the channel that I misinformed you guys about. I told you it was going to hit the channel on December 10th, which is this Tuesday. I'm wrong. It's going to hit December 11th, which is Wednesday. So I'm just bumping that up one day because I will be up the night before doing my full Raw review. So I would like that review to sit on the channel all day Tuesday, and then Wednesday morning before Dynamite and NXT, I'll drop my classic pay-per-view review, and it's a fun one. You guys have been asking me to do this one forever. It's a December-related pay-per-view. Even when I, rewatched it back, on paper, it's not even that great in my mind, but for some reason, it was just a really memorable show, and a lot of people have been requesting it for years, so I'm finally knocking it out, so keep a lookout for that on Wednesday. And then prior to that, this coming Monday in 2 days, of course, I'll be up here right after Monday Night Raw to review what will hopefully not be a shitty show. I mean, damn, last Monday night, after the week before, they had an amazing Raw with Rey Mysterio capturing the U.S. title from AJ Styles, and then they followed up last week with just a steaming bowl of diarrhea. Not fun. Very tough to watch. But luckily, we're not going to talk too much about that today. Let's bust out some wrestling news first, because there is a bunch of it here. And then after the news, I will hit one or two more super chats before we get into Monday Night Raw. I want to congratulate Matt Hardy and Rebby Hardy on the birth of their third child. I was not even aware that Rebby was pregnant, much less her having the baby. So they now have three, Maxwell and whatever the fuck the other one's name is, and now this one. So, that makes me really happy just when you think about where Matt Hardy was maybe in 2011, 2012. I mean, the dude, you could not get any more rock bottom than he was, with all of his arrests and his drug problems and his complete inability to get his life together. I remember in my early days of doing YouTube giving him a lot of shit, for kind of being a fuck up because I was disappointed in him. I remember seeing this guy before he even worked in WWE. Always just seemed like a really driven, motivated kid who just loved wrestling, who just was a wrestling nerd, much like myself. but just did things to become a wrestler. He just didn't seem like he didn't have any of the major problems until after, the success had come. And Jeff had all the personal problems before him. So to see him be where he was, in such a dark, dark place, really scary place where you were fearing for this guy's life, either via overdose, DUI, car accident, suicide, something like that, to completely turn it around and do a 180 to where he just has a beautiful family and a really happy existence down there in Cameron, North Carolina. And it's so funny when I see the when I see the family pictures of these guys, because I know where they live. I've been in that area a lot. I used to live in North Carolina throughout my childhood, and I know what North Carolina is like. That family in that little hee-haw town that they live in, they probably stick out like a sore thumb. Because it's a southern town, with a bunch of southern-looking people, and the way she dresses up, little Maxwell and everything, he's going to be the coolest kid at his school. He's going to get all the chicks. He's going to completely annihilate all the competition when it comes to socializing and having friends and having women when that kid grows up. I guarantee it, unless they get the hell out of North Carolina and go somewhere else. But anyway, congrats to Matt and the family. Very happy for them. Would like to hope that Jeff can, experience the same happiness one day. I do know he did. He was doing better. He's got a family now as well. They all live together on that compound, but he's dragging his feet a little bit, getting his shit together and getting his act together. And I think he can learn a lot from his brother. So I would like to hope that here soon you start seeing the same type of things for Jeff Hardy. Now, the interesting thing, too, about the Hardy Boys that I wanted to bring up is that Matt Hardy has been running the delete videos on his YouTube channel, where he's basically trying to reconnect with his past of the broken character and even try to, maybe bring that back in some way. So my initial thought was, oh, look at that. WWE might be giving another try to the woken character or the broken character, whatever the hell they're allowed to call it. And then right after I speculated on that last week, reports came out that Matt Hardy's contract with WWE is actually up pretty soon. So this may be him laying the groundwork for him going elsewhere outside of WWE and doing this. He might just be getting a head start on it. But we've been seeing him on TV lately. He's been working some matches, and I'm assuming when he's there, they have been working out a new contract with him. And my gut tells me that he probably will stick around, because he's got a new family, and this might be his last chance to get one good contract. He's in his mid-40s now. Both him and his brother have both been, somewhat injury prone, and that just comes with age. So if he wants to, put some serious bucks in the bank and, secure his family's future, he might want one more WWE contract. But if not, he can take this broken shit and go back to TNA or go somewhere else and maybe try to make a little bit of money and maybe have a little bit of fun doing something that he really likes. So whatever's going on here, based on these YouTube videos on his channel, how are we not going to see this broken character in some fashion in some company somewhere in the near future? You feel like you kind of have to, right? So that's all interesting. So congrats to Matt Hardy. Whatever you do in your future, whether you stick around in WWE and, give another try to the broken character, or if you go do that somewhere else, I wish you the best. Speaking of Monday Night Raw, which is where I think Matt Hardy made his last appearance, Samoa Joe has continued to impress on the commentary team, and he was back again this past Monday night, and he's been getting rave reviews from everybody. People have even been going out of their way. People don't even work for the company, going out of their way on Twitter, talking about how good he is. And I mentioned that when we first saw him. I'm like, he's a type of guy, much like a CM Punk, that I think could fall right into that role perfectly, and it might be good for him to think about something in the future. He's not going to be able to wrestle forever. His best days are long behind him, and he's had a lot of injuries in WWE. And I think if WWE ever was going to pull the trigger on like a Samoa Joe title run, they would have done it, right? 2 years ago, wasn't it like 2017 when he wrestled Brock Lesnar at Great Balls of Fire or whatever it was? So I think if they were going to do anything with Joe in terms of a main event, they would have done it. He's had multiple opportunities at the title. Brock, AJ Styles, I don't know, maybe Shinsuke, Roman, whoever else. And he's fallen short every time. So I'm sure he will return to the ring. He will have another run here in the company, but at least he knows he can do something else, when his in-ring days are done. And some of the reports now, I think originally reported by Meltzer, or might have been Alvarez, can't remember who, but this might be a permanent thing, at least for right now. I don't know how far off his arm is from being fully healed or him being cleared to return to the ring. But for right now, I think he's going to remain on the Raw commentary team indefinitely, along with Vic Joseph and Jerry Lawler, who also recently signed an extension with WWE. So we're stuck with him for another 3 years. But if you notice, Dio Madden has not been on TV since Brock Lesnar beat him up and F5'd him through the table. Now, initially it was thought that he was just selling the injury, but by now, anybody can come back from a F5 on a table. It should not take you a month, and makes you wonder what the hell's going on with him. And apparently, the reports are that Dio Madden wants to go back to the ring. He was an aspiring wrestler. He's a big guy, and he wants to continue to try to achieve his dream. And apparently he's back working out at the Performance Center. And before his Raw commentary stint even got started, seems like it's been taken away from him. So if he's back in the ring because that's where he wants to be and he prefers to be a wrestler over a commentator, great. Wish him all the luck in the world. If it's a different story, like some rumors, I'm not going to report this as news because it's only rumors, but some people were saying that Vince and Kevin Dunn didn't like him on commentary, which I think is stupid because he was only on commentary for like 2 or 3 weeks. How long did they leave Mike Adamle on commentary before they yanked his dumb ass off? So I find that really hard to believe that somebody that's that new and that young, that offers you such a fresh face and a new look to your announce team, that you're not going to give them longer than 2 or 3 weeks to get his shit together or to work with him, or if he's doing or saying things you don't like, to work on him to improve, just to cut him out of there completely. I don't buy those rumors. So if Dio Madden is gone and he's going back into the ring, I assume that's a personal decision, in which case I wish him the best. On the other side of the coin, Dio Madden, who's somebody that's well-liked, well-respected, let's talk about somebody that's completely batshit insane. ACH, a.k.a. Jordan Myles, is back in the news. Now, he just made news a few days ago when it was announced that he had signed a contract with MLW. Great. He's hitting the indie scene again. Seems like that's where he was happiest all along. That's where he was his most well-known and basically was the most relevant, was when he was on the indie scene. So him returning there after that crazy shit that went down with the t-shirt and then the racist, angry videos that he was posting and quitting WWE and fuck them. This guy, not all his dogs are barking. Something ain't right with him because he just completely goes off. So he had another meltdown today on Twitter just a few hours ago before I was going live here. He tweets out this, and I quote, this is from ACH, "I hate pro wrestling. I hate you shitty fans," shitty spelled with 1 T, by the way. "I hate you shitty fans that think you know it all. More importantly, I hate the snakes in this industry. None of y'all would never say anything about me to me. All of y'all can go screw yourselves. I'm canceling my shows and I'm quitting pro wrestling. Chasing my dream was great, but you self-entitled pricks ruin everything." So that is his latest psychotic meltdown here. I don't know if this is going to stick. He literally just signed a contract with MLW and now apparently he's quitting wrestling. I'm assuming that a lot of fans are giving him shit on social media. Whenever you have some sort of a controversial figure, you have people supporting him and you have people against him. And I'm sure he just sees a lot of shit, but I don't know. I'd hate to have that many followers and have that many, negative comments flying at me at once, I can handle 2 or 3. I don't give a shit. But when you have 2,000 or 3,000, maybe that gets to you, but he's not good at letting shit roll off him. That's for sure. Anytime he gets upset, he overreacts to like the 10th power. I don't understand. Like, breathe, my brother. God, go to the store and get a Xanax, or go to the doctor, or just take it easy. He reacts so over the top to everything that pisses him off. It's not a good look. I know he's a very talented dude, and there's a lot of wrestling companies that would love to have him, but you have to be like mentally stable at the same time. And right now, based on the way this guy's acting on Twitter, I don't think he is. There's a lot of wrestling fans that, or wrestlers that have to listen to criticism from fans. You take guys like Seth Rollins, who has not handled himself very well on social media at all, when he gives shit to the fans, but he's not melting down like this. And this is alarming because this guy's so talented. This guy has so much to offer to professional wrestling, but he's unstable. He's unstable for real. So we'll see if this quitting is for real or if he'll come around and then he'll think about it, and then he'll change his mind, or he'll delete the tweets, because he's been known to do that too, or delete the videos or whatever. But he has some anger issues. And hey, I'm not even like really blaming him for getting angry at fans that like criticize him, because once somebody decides they hate you, they just come after you. You know, these fucking losers with no life spend all their time tweeting and typing to, you know, to people they don't like, which back in the day, nobody would ever know if you get what you thought or that you even existed. But now in the world of Twitter, you can actually send a message directly to somebody that you don't like, which was just not possible in the 80s and 90s. So some people can, you know, handle a difficult situation head on, and some crumble and fold like origami. And that's what's happening to ACH here. And I hope he gets his shit together, because the dude is too talented to waste on a bunch of silly anger and overreactions and just overall mental instability. So ACH, I wish you well. Get your shit together. Maybe talk to somebody. Just a thought. Just a thought. So that's all I have written down really for the wrestling news, unless there's something else you guys want me to get into here. I definitely will. Let me knock out a couple of these super chats before we jump into the very limited amount of news on Monday Night Raw. Spaz Phoenix, thank you for another $10, dude. You are awesome. If anyone wants more NXT content, my NXT review is up on the Spaz Phoenix podcast, and Shots Blackheart's NXT debut match is full up on Spaz's channel. Shout out to the chat. All right, yes, go check them out right now. You can click that little thing in the top right there, and it'll shoot you right over to Spaz's channel. And Zane, thank you for another one. I saw that. That's right. I did not put that in my notes because I didn't really think it was that newsworthy. I didn't care, but I did see that story. Thanks for another $5. And you mentioned that Walter has his NXT UK stolen. UK belt. I thought it was his passport. Was it the belt too? Okay, maybe I misread that news story. I thought that Walter had only had his passport stolen, which is why I didn't put it down in the news, because I didn't think it was important enough to talk about. But if somebody jacked the belt, damn, that sucks. That's like twice now in the last few months. Jericho briefly lost his AEW title. So yeah, weird. I'll read up a little bit more on that story later on after this. But I was under the impression it was only the passport, but I guess I was wrong. Let's jump into the week of wrestling that was. My God, 4 shows this week. 1 horrendous, 1 pretty bad, and 2 mediocre. I think you guys know which ones are which there. The only thing I'm going to talk about Raw, in terms of Raw, is Seth Rollins and Lana and Lashley. We'll start with Seth. You know, when you watch him on Monday Night Raw, we've been wondering when the heel turn is going to happen. You know it's coming. After the Survivor Series, when Seth Rollins trashed the entire locker room, I was under the impression that was his heel turn right there. But then last Monday, he's coming out to apologize to everyone, but he's still kind of, you know, he's not really apologizing. He's apologizing, but he's not, kind of thing. So it almost seems like they're doing this like slow heel turn, which I think is completely unnecessary to do it slow. You know, Seth needs to turn heel right away. Just turn heel. The night after Survivor Series should have been it. And when you look at it, I think it pretty much was. It reminds me a lot of how Bret Hart turned heel in 97, because Bret Hart was reluctant to the idea of turning heel as it was. But when he did turn heel, and me and my smarky ways back then, and I was so fucking in love with Bret Hart, you know, what made him such a great heel is that he wasn't doing like your typical heel things, you know, by, you know, being a dishonest, lying, cheating, stealing asshole. Rest in peace, Eddie Guerrero. Just an example there. But like, he's not a dirty heel. He's not a chicken shit heel. When he speaks, he believes these things are true. You know, Seth's character in his head believes every word that he's saying. He really believes that he wants the best for Monday Night Raw, and he just wants them to be the number one brand, and that the locker room is a family, and we're all in this together kind of thing, when really, you know, he's saying, you know, I'm the only one here not fucking up, is basically the way he's acting. And that's a lot like what Bret did. Bret's like, look, dude, it's not me. It's you American fans that have changed on me. I'm the same guy I always was, you know, but you fans started cheering people like Stone Cold and all these other heelish wrestlers, and your values are just fucked up, and I don't appreciate it. And the disrespect you're showing me, I don't respect you. You know, and he believed all that. And Seth, it's kind of similar, you know, to where Seth just really feels that the fans are entitled assholes, but you got to remember he's a babyface, so he's going to continue to work like a babyface, because a lot of people are bitching now, oh, why is he doing top rope Falcon Arrows and he's a heel and that's not the way heels work. Don't worry about that. That's not your concern. To worry about little things like that. You can go through all through history and see plenty of heels doing moonsaults and backflips. Who was it that got really mad at the bump because a babyface did it? I think it might have been Seth Rollins. I can't remember what happened now. It was over Survivor Series weekend. Something major happened, and somebody on Twitter was like complaining, why is a heel doing a big babyface spot like that? And it immediately reminded me of a show that I attended live. I think I was in Richmond, Virginia for Monday Night Raw, Chris Benoit, Kurt Angle, steel cage match. This would have been in 2001. Kurt Angle is the most asshole of asshole heels you could find at that point, and he went right up to the very top of the cage and did a fucking moonsault off the top of the cage. It doesn't matter. Don't look too far into it. Don't read too much into it. Don't overanalyze it. Just see what they do, see where it goes, and try not to pretend that this doesn't make sense or that doesn't make sense. So I don't care the way Seth works. That's Seth's style. Don't forget, Seth has been a heel before, and he was still doing Falcon Arrows and shit. Doesn't matter. So Seth, what I would like to see him do is continue to wrestle like that babyface while trashing everybody at the same time. On the mic or in backstage interviews, taking little shots at the fans, taking digs at the talent for not pulling their weight or whatever, but to continue to go out there and wrestle like he's the most beloved wrestler on the roster. That might turn out to be fun, especially if it makes Seth come off as like some delusional, out of his mind guy that's not in touch with reality, which I think is what they're kind of already going for here. He seems to be oblivious, to a lot of things that he's saying and a lot of reality. So if they continue doing that with him, it might make him a good heel instead of making it too simple to where you're just going to say, okay, from now on, he's going to come out and tell the fans to go fuck themselves, and he's going to cut a hardcore, like pipe bomb type promo on the audience, telling them to screw off for all the nasty things they've been saying to him throughout the months and weeks. But to me, that almost seems like too easy. It's better for him to frustrate the fans. It's better for him to go out there and continue to pretend that he's a babyface, but do all this heelish shit on the side. I think might be more fun and might be a good way to get under the skin of the fans even more, accomplishing their goal as getting this guy to be more hated than he was the first time he had his heel run. That's just kind of my opinion on where they should go here. And they're also dragging out what I think will be the likely alliance between himself and AOP. I don't know if it's going to turn out to be Seth and AOP are in cahoots right now and they're making it seem like they're not, or if they really are separate and Seth's going to come around and join them in the future. Either way, I think AOP should be backing up Seth Rollins, and Seth Rollins on Monday, after his apology fell flat, he left. He was basically like, I give up, I tried, whatever. He left the arena, and then in Bobby Lashley, or on Kevin Owens' match, I think with Bobby Lashley, that's when the AOP came out, beat the shit out of Owens, and then dragged him to the backstage area to do God knows what. I still don't know if we even know what happened to Kevin Owens there. So hopefully this week on Raw we'll get a little bit more. And before we get to the end of the year, even though I think Seth is a full-fledged heel already, they'll make that known for sure, to where there'll be no more doubt in your mind with Seth Rollins. So I think if the fans hated him so much as a babyface and they talked all that shit, he can't cut it, his promos suck, he doesn't connect, they're right about all those things. So how can you complain about a heel turn now? Babyface wasn't working. You're screaming for him to be heel. They're starting to go in that direction, and I'm still seeing a lot of pushback. What do you want out of this guy? You know what I mean? And now it's to the point, well, I don't want him at all. Well, that's not what you said 2 years ago. 2 years ago, you would have been on board with Seth Rollins becoming champion because you were up Roman Reigns' ass. So it's just like it's just this revolving door of wrestlers that the fans are sick of. So I hope that WWE can learn from the mistakes of Roman Reigns with Seth Rollins, because with Roman, they didn't have the balls to do this, but they're doing it with Seth, so I think that's a good thing. And I think that can make the Seth Rollins character much more interesting to watch on TV, because I'll be the first one to admit, even though I think he's a hell of a wrestler and deserves that number one spot on the PWI 500, he doesn't connect. He gets, as a babyface, he gets zero reaction. He's nothing to the level of popularity of any babyface before him. So it seems like the only thing you could really do is turn him heel. So they did, and I'm hoping for the best on that one. Oh yeah, actually that is on my notes, Sam. Thank you for that. We're gonna backtrack that and talk about that in a second. I just want to finish up here with Monday Night Raw and talk about the absurdity of the Bobby Lashley and Lana and Rusev situation. So this whole storyline now seems to be hit or miss. They'll have a horrendous week, followed by a pretty decent segment, followed by another bad one. I'm now treating this angle as WWE's version of the movie The Room. And for me, the dumber it gets, the less it makes sense, and the more bad acting and horrible writing that we see from this, the better. I mean, that's basically what I hope for. I want to be able to laugh at it. I want to be able to look at how stupid it is and not be angry, but be laughing, be happy. Like, oh my God, this is so fucking bad. I want more. And I think it's already starting to kind of tread into that territory because Lana's acting, Jesus, man. Can you even attempt to take an acting class? I mean, I've never seen worse acting in my life, and that's pretty common throughout professional wrestling. It's, none of these motherfuckers know how to act at all, but can you at least try? And I love it that Lana no longer has the Russian accent, but she has the Russian accent when she says Rusev's name, only when she says Rusev's name. It's just, she's so bad. It's awful. So what'd they do last week? Lana and Lashley came out. I think they cut a promo. Oh, Lana, that's right. Lana had some banter back and forth with Kevin Owens, and they were kind of jawing back and forth. That's when Lashley came out, had the match with Kevin Owens. AOP interfered, got rid of Owens and drug him to the back, leaving Lashley and Lana back in the ring again. Now, Lana had these detectives, I guess she was calling her, basically some personal security to protect her from Rusev, who's obviously does not give a shit about this restraining order, and they're there to make sure he doesn't violate it like he did the week before. But the security was lame. One dude was old, looked like a taller version of the Miz's dad, and the other guy was just some young dude. I mean, if I was trying to get at Bobby Lashley, I could get past those dudes. Even if I had the flu and a broken arm and an eye missing, I could find my way around those guys and get in the ring. Probably to get killed by Lashley, but I could do it. So they're out there. I guess they're cutting a promo after the match, and that's when Rusev attacks. He attacks Lashley and then runs away through the crowd before the security is even able to get to him. And that pisses Lana and Lashley off so much that they put their hands on the detectives. I think Lashley touches one of them, so he gets arrested, which pisses Lana off. She slaps one of them, and then she gets arrested. So Rusev is the one that broke the law. Rusev's the one that violated a restraining order, which is probably a pretty big deal. But yet Lana and Lashley are the ones that are arrested, and a lot of fans were like, that's stupid. It makes no sense. You're right. It does, and I think it's awesome. Good. I'm glad it doesn't make sense. Nothing in this feud makes any sense at all. Especially if you're a fan and you see these guys outside of the ring. Rusev and Lana are probably checking in hotels together and shit. So it doesn't matter that it doesn't make sense because the whole fucking angle is dumb. So the more dumb things they do like this, the better. If you want to arrest Lashley and Lana and throw them in the back of a cop car, do it. Let Lana freak out and scream. Stephanie is gone, so they need that crazy, annoying mega bitch on their roster to be able to fill that void. So they're trying to do that with Lana. Sometimes she's good at it. Sometimes she sucks at it. This is one of those nights that she sucked at it. The only thing really good about her performance was her outfit, if you saw that on Monday. So that whole situation is kind of crazy, and I've changed. I was bitching about it for the first few weeks. Now I just want it to get dumber. Now I just want to see more of it. And next week, I hope whatever segment they do is even worse than this one. I know that's weird to want that and hope for that, but I do. So there you go. All right, let me go back up here and knock out a couple of more super chats because I know they were flying in. Thank you, Sam Pibbin. I appreciate that. I actually did have that in my notes, and I think I missed it. Or maybe I have it down a little bit further. Anyway, yes, it has been confirmed officially by WWE on WWE Backstage that John Morrison is, in fact, heading back to the company. We kind of knew that. There was some talk that he has resigned a while ago, a few weeks ago, maybe even over a month ago now, and then we never saw anything else about it. He never debuted. We haven't seen him on TV. Nothing has been confirmed. We thought maybe they were going to try to keep it quiet, save him for the Royal Rumble or whatever, but none of this, or this news should not come as a surprise to anybody. We had the feed. We knew John Morrison was coming back in. All the signs were pointing to that, and there was enough credible people in wrestling reporting that story to where if Morrison showed up, I wouldn't be shocked by it. So Of course, when WWE did this, fans were mad. Fans were mad that they announced his return on WWE Backstage, because why wouldn't you save him for the Royal Rumble or whatever, or bring him back as a surprise? I get it, but is that a battle you want to fight? You know, is that something that you really think matters? Do you think it matters how this motherfucker comes back? I'm terrified for John Morrison, that he's going to get lost in the WWE shuffle. I don't know him personally or anything like that. I know he's a great dude, but part of me has to wonder that given the fact that he's a veteran now, he's been away from the company for so many years, 8 or 9 years, whatever it's been, coming back in now, he might want to come back and finish things off in the WWE, where you can get, you know, some notoriety, potentially Hall of Fame, really good money contract, things like that, and, you know, kind of wind down your wrestling career that way. Or come back to the company and say, hey, I'm going to go back there, see if I like it. If not, I won't resign my contract and I'll go right back to where I used to be. So based on that, I don't have a whole lot of optimism that John Morrison is going to make it to big heights. This guy's not winning the Rumble and challenging Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania or anything. I really don't think it matters how he debuts. And I don't think every debut should be a surprise. Sometimes you can announce it ahead of time. Sometimes you can do it different ways. This is a battle I'm choosing not to fight. And I was really surprised how many fans were furious that he debuted on Backstage, or it was announced that he resigned with the company on Backstage. Guess what? We knew that already. They didn't tell you. I think it was Ryan Satin that broke the news on Backstage. He didn't tell you anything that we already didn't know. We've all been asking ourselves, hey, we heard Morrison resigned. Where the fuck is he? Well, there he is. Stop your bitching. Spaz, thank you for another $5, man. I appreciate it. What do you got here? 6-man tag, Corbin, Rude, Ziggler versus Zayn, Nakamura, and Cesaro versus Harper, Bryan, Rowan versus Roman and the Usos. Oh, Fatal 4-Way maybe? Looks good to me. Or Fatal 4-Way 6. What the fuck do you even call that match? I don't even know what that is, Spaz. But yeah, whatever that match with that group of talent there, looks fabulous. And actually, I'm going to talk about Daniel Bryan a little bit more when we talk about SmackDown, because during Bray Wyatt's Funhouse segment, he talked about how he used to have a family, and the screen flashed up with images of the Wyatt family. And I think Daniel Bryan was even in that image. So it's really cool that they're touching on their history there. And Eric Rowan is kind of doing something weird on Raw right now, where he's got that cage, you know, that's covered in the burlap or the tarp, and there's some sort of a critter or an animal in there, you would think. I mentioned that it looks like one of Bad News Brown's Harlem sewer rats. But if it's not that, it could be something completely different, and maybe that was an early tease to Bray Wyatt or The Fiend still having connections with his former family members. And maybe Eric Rowan, maybe something in that cage is Fiend related. Maybe not, but it could be. And maybe it has something to do with Bray Wyatt. Maybe it's another mask, or maybe it's Liv Morgan. I mentioned last week I mentioned Monday on Raw, that I think Kevin Dunn is inside the cage. That's where he lives. And you push little pieces of Kevin Dunn food through the bars to feed him once a day. Because if you notice, there's a camera in there. So who put the camera in there? Kevin Dunn must be sitting on a chair, you know, holding the camera, filming everything. That's what I would guess. So I think that's his house. But if it's not Kevin Dunn, then it might have to be something with The Fiend. Otherwise, it's probably a damn sewer rat. So this thing with Eric Rowan could be really awesome or really stupid. And given the fact that Daniel Bryan has now been bumped from the TLC match that we thought he was going to get against The Fiend and replaced by The Miz, you kind of wonder for Daniel Bryan's future too. You know, don't forget, this guy was a heel, doing a great job as that heel character with the eco-friendly Daniel Bryan and the recycling and all of that. And for him to abandon that so quickly after I thought he was doing great with it, and he only turned heel a year ago. Didn't he turn heel right before Survivor Series last year? So he's already back to being a babyface. Maybe part of me wonders if that's just a red herring and he's not really back to being a babyface, and he's going to actually align himself with Bray Wyatt since he got all of his hair ripped out. And they're keeping him off TV. We didn't see him last night on SmackDown. So I've got some optimism with that storyline, and I mentioned that at the top of the show. But we'll get into SmackDown here in a little bit. I want to run through AEW and NXT first. First things first, though, I want to mention the ratings between these two shows. Holy crap. Now, I watched both shows. I had to work Wednesday night, but after work, I watched them both in their entirety and started with, I think I watched NXT first this week because NXT had a big victory in the ratings the week before. I feel like they put on the far better show, so I was going to pick up, with them this week and watch them first because, last week they entertained me more. But I think based on both shows, they were kind of both mediocre this week. Oh, no, they were both good. I shouldn't say that. That's a bad choice of words. Both shows were good, but neither show was great or really that much greater than the other. And I remember, it's so funny because I remember after I was watching these, I was like, well, who the hell am I going to pick this week to have the better show? I really enjoyed NXT and a lot of things they did, and they set up a lot for December 18th, which I think was great. But then when you look at AEW, they had some great stuff too, and 2 amazing promos with Chris Jericho and Cody Rhodes and some pretty decent wrestling there as well. So I felt conflicted. I felt like it was tied. And I swear to God, I'm not making this up. I said, okay, if I'm going to have to pick when I do my podcast on Saturday, I think AEW won in my mind, gave me the better show this week, but by only a little. Like, it could have gone either way. I was so close to picking NXT, but in the end, I think AEW just edged out NXT for the better show. That's what I was planning on telling you guys today. But then on Thursday, the ratings come out and they reflected exactly what my thoughts were. Which means the fans and me must all think alike, because AEW drew 851,000, NXT 845,000. That is a difference of 6,000 people. That is nothing. I mentioned when there was a 20,000 viewer difference that to me that was equal. To me, anything under like 50,000 is pretty much even in my mind. So this is super even, and this is so incredibly close, and the ratings reflected exactly what was going on in my head. Both shows were good, and AEW, I'm just giving a half a point more too, based on what I saw there, and hopefully NXT will bounce back next week. So I was happy with the results of the ratings, because I don't want to see one show blowing out the other. I want to see it close, and I want to see him trade victories. NXT blew him out last week. AEW barely edged him out this week. I'd like to see maybe AEW edge him out next week as well, maybe by a little bit bigger margin. And then on December 18th, WWE brings out the big guns and fucking annihilates AEW to close out the year. I think that could be the most fun, where they're trading victories, trading one-ups, and then you go into 2020 with both of them, full force, to begin the year. So the fans benefit the most from when the ratings are close like this. And I was just really happy with those numbers. Because like I said, you guys know this, I've maintained this right from the start. I do not give a shit which one is better or which one wins or anything. Like, I don't have a dog in this fight. I think the fans are idiots, the way they act on social media to each other, as it relates to the NXT and AEW war, and how much nitpicking and bitching. And, you can tell people, there's podcasters too. I see podcasters that complain about people being biased when they're doing the same shit. They don't like AEW. They nitpick everything. What was Sammy Guevara jumping off the top rope for? What was this? Or these audio issues or whatever. I've said right from the start, AEW deserves and is allowed to have a few hiccups. They're brand new. I even had a guy tell me the other day on Twitter, I can't remember what he said, but I remember the final sentence was, at this point, I've pretty much given up on AEW, so I'm just going to concentrate on NXT. Great, that's your prerogative. No problem at all. Don't know why you told me that. I don't give a shit. But listen to what you said. At this point. As if AEW has been on the air for 5 fucking years, and you've given them every chance possible. It's not like they're TNA, that's been, failing miserably more and more every year, and they're hanging around like a cockroach that just won't die. How many weeks has this been going on? 8? 9? Come on. Can we give them a year? Can we give them 6 months? I mean, the impatience that was in that statement and in that tweet to me was beyond crazy. And I think that's because this generation just has everything at their disposal, and technology and internet and everything. You want everything now. You want everything yesterday. If you order something on Amazon and it's not here by the next day, you're like, this is fucking bullshit, man. So I just think people are spoiled. And even though ACH is crazy, he is right when he says people are entitled. And I could not believe that somebody said that to me. At this point, I've given up on AEW. I'm like, it's too early to give up on them. We don't even know. It's just so early, Were people giving up on Monday Night Raw on week 9? Come on, man. So I'm not giving up on anybody. And to act like we've been sitting here giving AEW or NXT or whatever side the fuck you're on, doesn't matter, that you're giving either side a chance and then you're going to just completely abandon them after 9 weeks, that's fine. You can totally do that. You don't need to tell me, but if you are going to tell me, then I think I need to inform you that you're an incredibly impatient human being and you need to cut this company a little bit more slack. They're going to have some hiccups. You got to remember that aside from Jericho, Moxley, Cody, and a few others, a big portion of their talent have no live TV experience. It's not like they're in WWE that's so micromanaged and has fucking promo classes, for fuck's sake. In their performance center where they can teach you each and every little possible detail they can think of about producing live television. You probably don't have a whole lot of that, or at least don't have it as strong in AEW. So that is what's going to come in time. That's what's going to come with experience. They're going to learn from their mistakes. They're going to do better at maybe booking their angles, timing their shows, scheduling their announcers, whatever. There's going to be growing pains, changes, improvements. That's all going to happen when you have a brand new company like this. So if AEW makes a mistake on one of their shows, or if something happens, you got people jumping literally out of their seats to go on social media as quick as they can to talk about that. And I think that's fucking stupid. So I think we need to give them a break. And I thought AEW, and here's one thing you have to give AEW credit on, because you can take parts of the show. When I'm about to talk about Dynamite here, there are a couple things on this show that was not good. My God, Brandy, get out of my face, get off my TV. I don't even want to see you. Daniels and Pentagon, not very good. Audio issues, a problem. Jim Ross and the announce team there, not as streamlined and doesn't sound as good as Raw, SmackDown, or NXT, in my opinion. So there are plenty of problems with AEW, but not enough problems for me to say, oh, they're a worthless fucking company, never watching them again. That's stupid. They offer some good stuff, and they give us a good wrestling show for the most part every week that does not feel like the exact same thing on the USA Network. They feel different than NXT. AEW is the brand, you have to remember, that tried to tell everybody that they're going to be more serious. NXT seems the ones that are more serious to me. AEW is giving you the more well-rounded wrestling show where they have good wrestling combined with comedy, combined with the wacky type of stuff you see in wrestling, and they feel more like a pro wrestling show where NXT feels like more of a competitive show. And I think AEW intended to have those identities reversed, but it's not really coming off that way. NXT is almost they're doing better at what AEW was attempting to do than AEW was. But, when you have stuff like Jericho in the Inner Circle, that stuff's great. That's the type of entertainment that they don't have on NXT, but you sometimes find on Raw and SmackDown, and right now you're not finding that at all. So when it comes to these like really fun in-ring segments, AEW is blowing all the brands out of the water right now with that stuff. They really are. I think that's one of their strengths. Their promos so far have been their strengths. Every time I've heavily praised an AEW Dynamite show, it's been primarily due to them having a really good segment or a really good promo or something that just sparks a lot of that emotion, where you're not getting maybe as much of that as in NXT. Just my opinion, just a few random freestyle thoughts there. But let's run through some of the matches. I'm not going to go in order here of AEW. I'm just going to talk about the major parts. There was, like I said, growing pains in the beginning of the show. They opened up with six-man tag, I believe. And they had, no, I'm sorry. Yeah, it was the Young Bucks and Dustin Rhodes. That's right. And Dustin came out there dressed in Bucks attire, which was really cool, against Sammy Guevara and Proud and Powerful. So during that match, there was a lot of audio cutouts in and out. You could barely hear Jim Ross. And even in weeks prior, have you guys noticed, or am I alone in this? It feels like the audio is really low. Like you can barely hear anything that they're saying. Like the voice, it's just so easy. Like in the truck, that should be one button. It should be right here, the fucking gain on your mic. Just turn these guys up a little bit. I can't hear Jim Ross or Excalibur or Shivani when they're talking. The volume is too low or something. Well, on Wednesday, the audio was non-existent. It was cutting in and out, and they suffered a few of those problems in that opening match. But the match was still really good. I was able to watch it and be entertained by it, regardless of the commentary. So it was a really fun six-man tag to open up the show, and that was one of AEW's strong points for the week. good solid opener. I think on the other side of that, they opened up with Killian Dane and Pete Dunne, which was a good match, but didn't give you, maybe that same excitement that you got out of the Bucks and everything. But a lot of fans had problems with that because Sammy Guevara's doing the vlogging gimmick and he's bringing his phone down to the ring and all of that. So they had the spot where he's on the top rope and the Bucks are laying down, and I guess he's going to hit him with a shooting star press. But the Bucks get up, and when he goes for the shooting star, they super kick him right in the face. Well, on TV, it looked like he was jumping into nothing. You didn't see the Bucks get up from the canvas and move. It just looked like Sammy Guevara was performing a stunt and doing a shooting star press and eating a couple of super kicks, where when you saw a wide shot of the fan cam, the Bucks were laying down and moved. So a lot of people decided to use that as ammunition to prove that AEW sucks or something. It's just so stupid. The battles that these people fight that are just so pointless to me. Anyway, I didn't care about that spot. Didn't bother me at all, and I thought it was an excellent way to open up Dynamite. Now, the two strongest points of Dynamite, I think, were the promos. Cody Rhodes cut a really good one challenging MJF. His promo somewhat reminded me of Razor Ramon back in 93 when 1-2-3 Kid beat him. And he was going on TV begging the Kid, begging X-Pac to wrestle him again. Come on, Chico, I give you $1,000, and then I give you $10,000. And I can't remember what he upped it to, but he finally was able to convince 1-2-3 Kid to face him again, even though Kid knew he was going to get his ass kicked. That's an interesting match, too. You should go back and watch that match from Monday Night Raw because it was a live Raw, and Kid legit knocked himself out on the floor, taking a really nasty bump and hitting his head and knocked himself loopy, almost fucking up the match. But for some reason, Cody's promo reminded me of that because he's challenging MJF. MJF is going out of his way to say he'll never wrestle Cody. It's not going to happen. So Cody starts sweetening the pot. He starts throwing in personal items. He takes off his watch, I think. He takes off his shoes. Maybe what other piece of jewelry? Watch, shoes, something else. And then brings in, I think he might have had Justin Roberts or somebody, bring in a briefcase full of $50,000 cash. So he's offering all this stuff, leaves it in the ring for MJF. And the promo itself, I thought, was really good. And I think the promo work between these two is going to be phenomenal. And I'm glad that they're dragging their feet. I'm glad that they're not trying to get this done before the end of the year. Let this feud simmer, let this build, let Cody continue to chase this guy and try to convince him to face him. Eventually, we'll start getting some one-on-one in-ring promos together, which I think are going to be really good because Cody is really good at being emotional and cutting, good, heartfelt, truthful promos. And I think he's excellent. And he said some wonderful things here. He had a really fun line, too, about MJF's really shitty version of the Crossroads. Apparently, he doesn't deliver it very well. The couple that I've seen him do haven't looked bad, but a lot of people say he sucks at it. And Cody dropped a funny line about now the Crossroads can be botched on 2 channels, which I thought was good. And overall, it was just a really good promo by Cody where you felt it. You felt like, okay, this can be good when he finally does convince this guy to wrestle him. It's going to be some bad blood, and he's still sporting that scar. Talked all about how MJF threw in the towel and it wasn't just his decision to make, and he took away his opportunity to be AEW champion because now, as it says in the contract, he can no longer challenge for the title and all that stuff. So I think Cody did an excellent job of building his issue with MJF, and I can't wait to see, where it goes down the line. I've seen a lot of Cody criticisms too, which again is so fucking stupid to me because you got to remember when this guy was in WWE, this is what drives me crazy. When this guy was in WWE doing nothing, having one dumb little angle or gimmick after another, and then them going in the extreme direction, making him Stardust, which we thought could be good, but they never did shit with Stardust, and Cody was being completely wasted. The son of the American Dream, the brother of Dustin Rhodes, who's a great talent, great in the ring, good look, has all of the tools. Maybe just like a notch below someone like a Randy Orton or something in terms of like look, athleticism, shit like that. Everybody thought that Cody Rhodes could be world champion. Everybody thought Cody Rhodes was capable of being a world champion. And when he decided to not stick around the WWE anymore because he's being used by like a piece of shit and go on to do something else. Fans loved it. They sung his praises. He goes to Ring of Honor. He goes to Japan, has a lot of success, becomes the American Nightmare, Cody Rhodes, really making a name for himself, much like other guys who have left the company like Drew McIntyre and others who have left and, fulfilled their true potential like we always knew they had. So you had fans back when Cody was in WWE saying things like he needs to get out of there. He needs to go somewhere where he can be used to his maximum potential. Well, guess what? You can't really be used to much more of a maximum potential than this. This guy not only left WWE and became a success in the ring, now he's an executive and he helped create his own fucking wrestling company. He's now in a position, he's following in the footsteps of his father. He literally did everything the fans wanted and then some. The fans wanted him out. The fans wanted to see him succeed. So not only did he do that, but he succeeded in the greatest way possible, becoming, a Triple H-like figure. So I guess the rule is, yes, leave WWE and go be a success, but not too much of a success. And that's Cody's problem. He was too successful, and now he's up shit's creek because the fans know he's in a position of power. He was even being criticized for his promo. Well, the only reason the promo is good because he's creative and he has the power to give himself time to do that. Are we ever happy? Ever? For fuck's sake. I'm going to go on the other side of this coin and say I'm proud of Cody because instead of him sticking around in a safe place like WWE where as Dusty Rhodes' son, you've got a job for life, but that wasn't good enough for him. He wanted to be a success. He wanted to be bigger than what WWE was treating him, and the fans did too. So he does it, and now they reject him. Fuck y'all who are doing that to him. Are you kidding me? So anyway, I've got no issues with Cody Rhodes whatsoever. I am glad that they were smart enough not to do something like put the belt on him right away, because that, I think, would have been a mistake, and that would have really intensified the criticisms of him being in a position of power and also holding championships. So that day will come, but I think it needs to be way in the future. And with the match with Jericho, him losing the opportunity and never being able to get a shot at the title again, we know that's bullshit. You can easily turn that around and write a reason for him to get a shot again in the future. They've done this with Lex Luger and other people in the WWE before that have had this stipulation. So the stipulation means dick. They can work around that and he'll get a title shot in the future, but at least it stalls it for a while and lets AEW create a track record, get some champions under their belt, and have some other guys hold the belt. And then one day you will come to the point where you put it on Cody and he can have the moment like he did at All In, where he won the NWA title and it was a big moment and all of that. So that day will come for Cody, and I think it's way in the future. So in the meantime, I don't know why we're complaining about him. What the fuck? So I think he's one of the best babyfaces in the business right now, and I loved his promo on Dynamite. Speaking of promos, our friend Chris Jericho is back at it again. He bragged about how much of the Jericho bubbly they sold, 20,000 bottles in just a couple of days. 2 of them are coming to my front door. They should be here soon. I really hope that I can get those by December 30th because my plan for the year-end Q&A is to pop open a bottle of that bubbly and drink it right here on the live stream. But they probably are back-ordered. I ordered mine on like the 2nd or 3rd day, and they're supposed to be shipped out the 2nd week of December. So as long as I'm in that first batch and I don't have to wait for another production of more bottles, I should get it in time. And we're going to be drinking some bubbly. And I'm at 2 bottles, one to open and try, and the other I'm just going to keep as a collectible. But anyway, the bubbly is on the way. Jericho also, and I got to apologize. I got so much to talk about in terms of this Jericho promo because I have to make an apology. I was getting way ahead of myself on Twitter a couple of days ago thinking about this Jericho Jungle Boy match, and I completely misunderstood what the hell Jericho said. So anyway, Jericho's on the mic, and he talks about the powers that be in AEW are forcing him to wrestle one more time in 2019. Now, my brain had misheard that. My brain thought he said they are forcing him to defend the title one more time. That's not what he said. He said wrestle one more time. So he is going to be very picky about who he wrestles on Dynamite. This match is going to happen on December 18th. He's being forced to wrestle, but apparently, as of right now, this is not a title match. but he also has a bunch of restrictions. He's not just going to wrestle anybody. As a matter of fact, he's made a list of the people that he's not going to wrestle. And now we're back to that, and the fans start popping. They're like, holy shit, a list. And he goes, no, it's not a list. I'm done with that. We're going to call this the Lexicon of Le Champion. Oh, Jericho, you are the fucking greatest. So it's now, the list gimmick has now come into AEW, which I think is great because the list was so fun. And now it's the Lexicon of Le Champion, and he's got the list of people that he's not going to wrestle. And Jon Moxley is playing the role of armbar in this list because every other name he's saying Moxley. Moxley's number one. Then he rolls off some more names like Adam Page, like Diamond Dallas Page, and like Page. Page from WWE. I think AJ Styles might have been in there. Rolled off a bunch of funny names and wound up leading to Jurassic Express showing up and hitting the ring. Very cool interaction there with Luchasaurus and Jake Hager, two badasses there, kind of face to face. Luchasaurus says some words on the mic. He's very good. Marco Stunt kind of bows up to Jericho like he's going to do something to him. I don't know what he's going to do. Grab a hold of his leg. I don't know. And Jungle Boy, who's right there in the middle. This whole thing turns into Jericho basically being challenged by Jungle Boy. He's not going to wrestle Luchasaurus, and Marco Stunt is too busy playing Darlene on the TV show The Connors. So he does not have, he's not going to wrestle either one of those guys, and it turns out to be Jungle Boy. So that match is now pretty much official. Jungle Boy versus Jericho on December 18th. Now, where I got ahead of myself is that I was under the impression the whole time that this was a title match. I think my brain heard Jericho say title defense when really he said match. AEW is forcing him to have a match. And plus, why would he put the title up against Jungle Boy, who if you're doing things by rankings, Jungle Boy is nowhere near any sort of a title shot right now. So it would have to be like an impromptu thing where, Jericho's just convinced to put his title up against a non-contender or something like that. As of right now, it's looking like that's not going to be a title match. But I kind of think it should be because they're going to be losing very badly in the ratings that week against NXT. Adam Cole is going to defend his title against the winner of a triple threat, and Rhea Ripley and Shayna Baszler is being given to us on TV. So there's a really strong possibility, and I'll talk about this later, that we could see a title change, especially with the women, on NXT. You've got to do something on AEW's side to combat that. So where I was misunderstood is I was thinking this was a title match, and I started thinking to myself, I'm like, if this is a title match between Jungle Boy and Jericho, and AEW knows they're going head-to-head against a show that has 2 title matches on it, they're going to have to do something to make their show more interesting or make it better than NXT. And my brain started turning. I'm like, you know what? I started thinking about the year 2000, when Jericho caught that quick victory over Triple H for the title when he first came in, and Earl Hebner did the fast count, and then he had to give the belt back and all of that. I was like, they might do something like that with Jungle Boy. Or Jericho is working Wrestle Kingdom. He's got a match with Tanahashi in early January. And when he announced that match, and that was announced on Japan, in Japan anyway, there was no mention of him being AEW champion. I didn't see the belt with him. I don't think the two companies are really on the best of terms. So I don't think there's any working agreement there. So maybe AEW, especially if the plan, I don't know what he's going to do at Wrestle Kingdom, win or lose, but let's say the plan is for him to lose. Do they want their champion going over there and losing to one of the New Japan's top guys? They might not want, because then that guy can claim to be AEW champion. This used to happen all the time back in the day when you would have Antonio Inoki. And Antonio Inoki, I think, won the WWE title from like Bob Backlund or something. You had a couple of these weird phantom title changes that were never really acknowledged. And a lot of that shit happened in Japan. So would they want to send Jericho over there? Because Jericho could do what he wants. It's in his contract that he can work Japan dates, so AEW really has no say in what he does. But do they want their champion going over there and dropping a match? So I'm like, well, maybe he drops the belt. Maybe they actually do the unthinkable. And they have some crazy interference, probably from Moxley. You do like a Mick Foley winning the title from The Rock type of thing on Raw when Austin came in and interfered. Because nobody was really expecting Foley to win that night either. You got to remember that, because Rock had just won the belt at Survivor Series. So that was a very big shock. And if they do that with Jungle Boy and they make some crazy fucking match, this is all assuming it's a title match. I know it's not, so this is pointless to talk about. I'm just kind of giving you my thought process. If they had some screwy finish where Moxley interfered, cost Jericho the belt, Jungle Boy is your new AEW champion, and based on that ad, which I'll talk about in a minute, that TNT ad for AEW Dynamite when they were saying they buried NXT and trounced NXT, another ad that got fans really upset, seems like a little bit of an act of desperation too on AEW's part. And if they really want, if they're looking for publicity here, they might want a taste of that Luke Perry's son won the world title publicity. It wouldn't be long, just be for a few weeks. Give the belt to Jungle Boy. Jericho goes and works Tanahashi in Japan. Whatever happens there happens. Then Jericho comes back, and on the very first Dynamite of the new year, he challenges Jungle Boy, wins the belt back, and goes into the Bash of the Beach and the Jericho Cruise as champion. I thought that could be a possibility just because why not? And you've now kind of made a star. It will go down on the record books that even though it was for a couple of weeks, Jungle Boy is a former world champion, could be just what he needs to get him launched and become a little bit more serious of a competitor. And it might be a win-win for everybody involved. But then it hit me like a ton of bricks the other night that, wait a minute, dumbass, this match is not for the title. So anyway, if for any reason it changes in the next couple of weeks, because it might, AEW might feel that NXT is stacking their lineup pretty strong for that night on the 18th, they might want to change it to a title match. I don't know. But if it does turn out to be a title match, look for Jungle Boy to win it. That's all I'm saying. And if it was a title match, I would seriously consider doing something like that because I think it harms nothing. It doesn't harm Jericho. So what if somebody loses the belt in a fluke? They can always win it back. Happens all the time. Happened to Brock. Look at Brock, got beaten in 25 seconds by Bill Goldberg and then whooped his ass at WrestleMania. It happens to the best of us. And it can happen to Jericho too. Don't forget, Jericho is, 50 years old with a granddad bod at this point. So why is it that out of the realm of possibility, that some young up-and-coming star can pull a quick upset on him? Don't forget Scorpio Sky pinned him a few weeks ago too. So all that was running through my mind when I was thinking about the Jericho and Jungle Boy situation. I thought they could actually flip the belt. But I don't think they are because I don't think it's a title match. I mentioned Brandy earlier on. I'm really tired of this. What's the girl's name? Statlander? Forgot her first name. Taking on Hikaru Shida. Pretty good match. Brandy and Awesome Kong come out. I guess they're being called the Nightmare Collective. I think they're trying to get at Statlander, I think. They wind up bringing in a plant from the crowd. She kind of looked like Bayley a little bit. Dark hair. She comes up and kneels down kind of like on the ramp apron area and pledges herself to the Nightmare Collective, and they cut her hair. They cut all her hair off, and it's getting no reaction from the crowd. Brandy's been wearing these really outlandish outfits and a veil and doing all this stuff. Seems like, I know I was criticizing the fans that were criticizing Cody earlier on for maybe abusing his power. I'm not seeing that with him in terms of the angles that he's involved in. But if there is any sort of abuse in power, maybe it has to do with his wife. Maybe he's allowing and pulling strings for his wife to do whatever dumb shit she wants on TV, no matter how bad it is. And from the very first week that we saw this, we didn't know what it was. We thought it was stupid, and I don't think any of our opinions have changed. I think the Rusev, Lashley, and Lana angle is a lot better than this Nightmare Collective. And what the fuck is going on with these dark, gothic stables in AEW? How many do you need? You had the Butcher and the Bunny and the Blade debuting last week. You already have the Dark Order, which is now, which were creepy enough with the shirtless dudes in gimp masks. Now we're seeing vignettes for these guys, finally, trying to give the fans a little bit more of an idea of who the Dark Order are, because so far, they're not getting much reactions from the crowd either. That might change now. And you've got this Nightmare Collective faction. So that's 3. There might even be one that I'm not thinking of here. And Darby Allin falls into that category too. And by the way, Darby Allin apparently is injured. Damn it, I didn't read up on that either. All I know that is that he's injured and he's going to be out for a while, and that sucks. So there's a lot of those like stables going on in AEW right now that are just a little bit too much the same. And I think, especially with the Dark Order and the Blade and Bunny and Butcher shit, I think those two are way too close together. The Blade, the Butcher, and the Bunny also remind me of the Forgotten Sons on NXT. There's way too many of these factions and teams that look alike, and I'd like to see less of those. We had some pretty good matches, too, on on Dynamite. I thought the Trent and Ray Phoenix match was fabulous, with Ray Phoenix picking up the win there. Daniels and Penta, not so much. Really horrific botch by Daniels, trying to do some sort of a springboard off the rope onto the ramp, and he just fell and just ate shit right on the ramp there. That did not look good. And Daniels, he's looking his age. He ain't no spring chicken anymore either, and I don't think he is anywhere near as good as he used to be. The main event saw, or actually, before we talk about the main event, let's talk about the Nyla Rose match, where they did the spoof of Britt Baker on NXT, because at War Games, they showed Britt Baker in the crowd, kind of doing one of these things after Adam Cole took that crazy bump, and they referred to her as Adam Cole's girlfriend. So this is when the little shots between the two companies are fun. I really hope nobody was too upset or offended by this. This was all in good fun. This was super tongue in cheek. It's good to see that Britt Baker didn't get any heat for that, because that would be stupid. Definitely not like the old days where one of those Highlanders showed up on Impact and they showed him on TV and he got fired and all of that. I think the companies understand who the other are, and they know that there's some floating couples, Peyton Royce and Shawn Spears, and Moxley and Renee Young, and Britt Baker and Adam Cole. So during the Nyla Rose match, fucking brawl or something, right? She's beating up a bunch of people. She puts someone through a table, and they cut to Britt Baker, who they placed in the crowd, and she's doing the very same thing. And Excalibur referred to her as Adam Cole's girlfriend. Now, I loved that. To me, that's all in good fun. Those are the type of shots that I want to see them take at each other. Those are the type of shots that I want to see the companies do, because it's more fun. It's a lot less malicious. It doesn't make you come off as like an asshole when you do stuff like that, where back in the day when you had Bischoff giving away the results of Raw and everything was just done to hurt the other promotion, that I don't like. And that's kind of why, the TNT ad I thought was kind of stupid. But the Britt Baker parody was great. And then Adam Cole, I think, tweeted out a picture of him doing that. So everybody's taken part in the Britt Baker challenge, and that's the part of the Wednesday Night Wars that I think are fun and lighthearted, and the more of those, the better, in my opinion. What I don't want to see is delusion, desperation, or dishonesty. The 3 Ds is what I'm calling them in this Wednesday Night War, and unfortunately, as much as I love AEW, and I got their back, that was a really stupid ad they put out on TNT. They got their asses handed to them last week in the ratings by NXT. So then they have this TNT ad come out where it's all these headlines from, New York Post and random publications from the first few weeks of the war, where the headlines were AEW buries NXT, AEW trounces NXT. And then one more. I can't remember what the third one was. But that's really stupid. Do you really want, and I've said this before, do you want to poke this bear? Because I don't think AEW or their fans really realize the true power of WWE. We saw that a little bit during Survivor Series, that whenever they want, right now they're cool with just trading these ratings wars with AEW. But if they're pushed, they will do whatever they have to do to make NXT the better show. And if that means bringing in other talent and just having random matches, here you go. Here's Matt Riddle and AJ Styles for the fuck of it, or Matt Riddle and whoever, or Tommaso Ciampa and Randy Orton, or Keith Lee and Brock. I don't know. There's so much that they could do. WWE has the power, the ability, and the talent to load up NXT with more star power than AEW. And I just think it's really foolish to put out an ad like that, because I just think you're asking for trouble. I'm okay with taking shots at each other. I'm perfectly fine with that, but you don't want to tread into stupid category, because that's what Bischoff did when Bischoff was giving away the results of Raw, when he was so full of himself and hurling stupid, wrong, incorrect insults at the WWE, and basically just lying outright about their product and the state of their product. And so, yeah, just if you're not desperate, and you're not making these knee-jerk ads, I definitely think that commercial was a direct result of NXT whooping their ass the week before. So if you want to do things like the Britt Baker thing, and you want to take little shots at each other here and there, great. Just don't be delusional. Just don't bullshit yourself into thinking that you're destroying NXT, when really, in the long run, WWE's got the track record here. They're the proven entity. They're the ones that have proven that they can sustain a TV show for weeks, months, and years on a network. They are 9 or 11 weeks in here. I don't even know how many weeks we've been But we're less than a dozen weeks in here to the Wednesday Night War, and you don't be too confident. That's my thing, Pride comes before the fall, right? So that's the only thing there that didn't upset me. A lot of fans were mad, furious, tweeting all sorts of dumb shit. And I tweeted out, I'm like, this is where the NXT fans have a chance to prove that they're less crazy than the AEW fans in how they handle this. Remember how mad the AEW fans got when WWE said it's a marathon, not a sprint? Oh, they're just making excuses and they're just desperate and they're saying that and blah, blah, blah. They were so mad and offended that WWE would make a statement that's 100% true, but yet that rubbed them the wrong way. So I advised NXT fans to not act like that. Be better than them. Don't get all mad about a TNT ad. Yeah, it was stupid, and they're probably going to wind up paying the price for that in the future. So basically, if I'm in AEW, if I have any sort of a say, I'm not putting that ad out. That's all I'm saying. Finally, in the main event of Dynamite, we had Jon Moxley defeating Joey Janela. Good match, but where did they face before? Was it, Fyter Fest? It was over the summer, right? I think it was Fyter Fest where they had that great match, that great, crazy, hardcore match. This one was not nearly as good as that, but still pretty good and a pretty decent way to close the show. And you had the stare down with Moxley and Jericho to close the show, just like you had the week before. So I think the plan at the moment is to have Moxley be the next challenger for Chris Jericho, and I'm thinking that's going to take place at the Bash at the Beach events next month. Now, they're doing a taping on a Wednesday Night Dynamite, I think on the 15th, and then the week after that, we're all going to be on the boat for the Jericho cruise. So I don't know if the title defense comes before the cruise or on the cruise. And Moxley is booked for the cruise, so he will be on the boat, whether he's champion when he gets there or not. Or they might have, God, that would be pretty funny. Jericho's organizing this whole cruise. It's his deal. It's his party. And then he drops the belt at his own party. Could be funny. I might actually get to witness an AEW title change hands in person if this shit happens on the boat. But how do you guys feel about Moxley and Jericho? You into that? Are you into that feud, or do you think they should maybe do somebody else first, before they get to Jon Moxley? Because Moxley has proved that he can keep himself busy. He can do other things. He can work with other guys, have crazy over-the-top feuds, and wind up maybe coming back to the title at some other point. But they seem to be pulling the trigger on that now. And if he does wrestle Jericho, I guess he would be the guy. When Jericho initially won, I was thinking Omega all the way. That Omega would be the one to defeat him, because I do think you need the rubber match still between the two. Aren't they 1-1? And it might be a good way for Omega, who was that, big crown jewel, that big centerpiece of the roster. He's been kind of quiet since the launch of AEW. And Jon Moxley beat him, right? At Full Gear in that crazy hardcore match. So maybe you give Moxley the belt now, and then Omega beats him for it. That could be what we see. So instead of Omega getting that win from Jericho back and beating him for the title, it might turn out to be Moxley, and that would be better. I think Moxley and Omega will be a much better match, for the title when we finally get to that point down the road. And they can book that and start that feud, like maybe around WrestleMania time or something. I don't know. Or maybe Moxley holds the belt for a while. Really don't know what they're going to do there, but maybe Moxley's next in line, followed by Omega, and then maybe in a year's time, you start thinking about Cody again. And hell, I'd put the belt on MJF. Yeah, I would. I'd put the belt on MJF during his feud with Cody, and then he can be like, hey, that thing that that it says in your contract you can never wrestle for again? It's right here. And dangle it in front of his face. That can make for some really fun promos. So one thing that AEW has going for them is that nothing right now is really all that predictable. I think they can go in a lot of different directions, and at least in terms of the world title, they're hitting home runs on that, because Jericho, even though he's older and he's not nearly the same in the ring as he used to be, he's entertaining, he's a pro, knows how to talk, he's been the perfect guy. I'm so glad it was him winning that title and not Adam Page, aren't you? Makes a lot of sense now, in hindsight. Had they put that belt on Page, I don't know. I couldn't imagine Dynamite without the Inner Circle. I could not imagine Dynamite without Jericho and Sammy Guevara hugging each other and the lexicon of Jericho. All that shit's great, and it's keeping that ship afloat in AEW, in my opinion. We'll move on to NXT next. By the way, I'm not in a hurry this week. That's why I'm talking so long. Last couple of weeks, I've only had 90 minutes to do this podcast. That time is now up, but I can definitely go for another 30 here. And Numbers are not good, but this is a little bit better than the last couple of weeks. At least we're up to about 200 viewers right now. Numbers on the live streams have been really down in the past few weeks. So for the 188 of you that are in here right now, will y'all do me a favor? Smash that like button. Takes 1 second. Just with your finger, your mouse, elbow drop it, lick it. I don't care. Just smash it for me and get those likes up. I would really appreciate it. And later on tonight, probably 7 hours from now, I will have the audio of this podcast available for download on my website, and it'll be up on all the podcast sites as well. But I have to go to work first, and when I come home tonight, I will post all of that for us, or for you. Excuse me. Let me make sure I didn't miss any super chats before I get into NXT. Super chats. There's a few. Oh, yeah, I got a few in here. All right, let's start with, let me take a sip of my delicious Coca-Cola. Austin Kinkle, thanks for another one, buddy. $5 from you. You are very generous. Do you think Corbin is a better heel now than when he was teaming with Lashley and McIntyre, tanking the ratings around this time last year? Yeah, he's always been a good heel. I hate to say that. That fucking crown and shit. But people are just still don't like Corbin. They don't like to see him. I'm not interested really in this Roman Reigns feud at all. I'm going to be talking about that in a minute. But I'd say, yeah, he's probably better. Still not great. I don't really love him a whole lot more now than I did a year ago, but I think what he's offering on TV is better. Yes, for sure. And Zane, thank you for another $5, dude. I appreciate that as well. Do you think Sheamus versus Aleister Black is a sexy match? I actually don't. Here's why. Sheamus he's a little older. He's bigger. I guess maybe it would be all right. I imagine Black being in the ring with guys that like can sell for him better and can take those kicks and shit. I think it would be an interesting match, Sheamus and Aleister Black. It definitely could be good. I'm trying to think of, the Sheamus and Cesaro matches. I'm thinking of those. Those were good. They weren't necessarily bad, but they weren't like 5-star, main event level shit either. And Cesaro's an excellent worker. So Sheamus, I don't know. He's just a little bit stiff to me. I am happy to see him back. I am happy that he's going back to his old hairstyle. It appears like he might be a babyface upon his return. I'm not even sure. And he's on separate brands. Aren't SmackDown is Sheamus, Raw is Black? So I don't think we can get that match anyway. If it happens, I don't necessarily think it'll be a bad match, but I don't know if I'd attach the word sexy to it, if that answers your question, Zane, but I appreciate it. And what else did I miss? Mr. Solo Loke Rager. Thank you, man. Cody's was always a good promo cutter. I agree. Thanks for the $2, dude. Cody can always cut a good promo. Even with that Rhodes family lisp, he can still get it out, and you still believe in him. And he's always been able, to do that, which is kind of my point earlier. Everybody that wanted him to leave, now he does. He finds success. Now they want to tear him down. Seems completely fucking pointless to me. But anyway, thank you for that latest batch of super chats, and thank you for getting those likes up. They're creeping, but we can do 100. Can we at least do 100? Come on, there's 192 of you in here. You can give me 100 likes. Please. Pretty please. I'm not going to talk about NXT until you do. Actually, that's a lie, because I have to leave soon. Anyway, NXT this week as well, much like Dynamite, good show, but not the best that we've seen since the Wednesday Night Wars started. The best news this week on NXT is that our friend Mauro Ranallo is back. Thank God he's back in the announce booth, back where he belongs. Seems right back to his old self. He was right back to being Mauro, screaming and yelling and dropping the rap lyric one-liners all throughout the show. Very entertaining, and it doesn't look like he's, at least on TV, suffered too much from the Corey Graves incident and whatever's going on with him personally, mentally. Glad he's back. So glad he's back. I was worried. I expressed my concern last week that, it's one thing to give opinions on a situation like this. Oh, Corey Graves, you're a dick, and why'd you do this? Or Mauro Ranallo gets to have or needs to have thicker skin, or whatever wherever you lie on this fucking silly shit. To me, it was more serious because, this is somebody's life, that hangs in the balance here. This is somebody that battles bipolar disorder and has depression issues and has had a lot of mental health issues and problems. I would not want it on my conscience to be the guy to put him, back into a bad spot in his life. So the fact that he was gone a couple of weeks, he's back now. Hopefully this can all be put behind us and Mauro can get back to being Mauro. Really, really good to hear his voice. I want to start with the women because all of the stuff that the women did on the show was the most exciting Oh, well, second most exciting. The most exciting thing to happen in the entire week of wrestling was Keith Lee rising from the ashes to grab a hold of Finn Balor, which I'll talk about in a minute. That was the shot of the week. But the women had a lot going on here. You had Dakota Kai. She was supposed to take on Rhea Ripley. She cut a promo earlier on in the night calling Mia Yim a hood rat, which I laughed at, but apparently is getting some heat. I'm not mad. I'm not choosing to be offended about hood rat. Don't give a shit. She called Mia Yim a hood rat, which I kind of thought was funny. Then you had Shayna Baszler having a match against Xia Li, a little tune-up match. She defeated her. Then we're supposed to get Dakota Kai versus Rhea Ripley, which is going to be a really interesting match because Dakota turned on the War Games team, and Ripley's going to want to get her hands on her. And I even thought to myself, I'm like, do you do this one already? Dakota and Ripley? And if you do, I'm not having either girl lose here. Dakota just turned heel, and I am loving this heel Dakota. And Ripley has got a rocket strapped to her ass, and she ain't going to be losing either. So I was kind of concerned how the finish of this match would even go, but we didn't have to worry about it because after Dakota comes to the ring, she's got kind of new music. She's got a newer outfit. I think last week you guys have to inform me on the music. I think last week she debuted with new music, but she was still kind of wearing the colorful type of attire. This week, she went to a more darker look, which I think is great. She is, even though it's been so short-lived, she has really impressed me as a heel. I guess just on the surface, I didn't think she had it in her, but man, she's good. I just really like Dakota, and she is not hard to look at either. So I like her new look. I like her new attitude. I like her intensity. Rhea Ripley comes out. She gets on the mic and she goes, you ambushed us at War Games, so now it's our turn to ambush you. And she brings out the hood rat, Mia Yim, who then hits the ring, starts brawling with Dakota, and they brawl off into the crowd, leaving Ripley out there by herself. And that's when Shayna and company come out. So Shayna had already had a match earlier on. She comes out there with Duke and Shafir, and they beat down Rhea Ripley. Really cool. They grab a hold of her. They even kind of tie her up in the ring ropes, and they're choking her. And so basically all three of them have got Rhea Ripley tied up, and they choke her out, beat her down. And that's when Shayna gets on the mic and says, you want a match? You want a title shot? Well, you've got your title shot on December 18th. That's in just a couple of weeks. Less than 2 weeks, a week from this Wednesday, and that's awesome. I mentioned earlier on the fans that were complaining about, what are they giving this away for free for? Who fucking cares? This is great. Maybe TakeOver in the Royal Rumble is too far. Maybe they've got other plans for TakeOver later in January, and you got to remember, we're right in the middle of this AEW and NXT Wednesday Night War. So you're going to want, both of these shows are going to want to have some big title matches on there. And if you do one like this that they've been building for and that I've been calling for ever since July, giving this away on TV could actually be a good thing, could be a really good rating. And they will likely annihilate AEW in the ratings, especially if you pull the trigger on Ripley and right on the final live NXT show of the year, she wins the world title and you crown her as the new champ. That's one option. So let's say they do that option. Ripley wins the title. Huge deal. Awesome, right? Then at TakeOver, you could do the return and have Rhea Ripley retain, send Baszler on her way, ending and squashing that whole feud, passing the torch to Rhea Ripley and letting her now be the badass, because don't forget, Asuka never got a chance to pass the torch. She forfeited the belt, and they moved her up onto the main roster. She retired undefeated, or moved to the main roster undefeated. So now with Baszler, her holding this title so long, you've got a chance here for her to put someone over. And that's what I've been saying all along. The fans get so impatient. Every time I watch the TakeOver this year, so many people are saying, Io Shirai should beat her. Candice LeRae should beat her. Every single time Shayna Baszler got in the ring with somebody, the fans thought she should lose. The only reason they thought that is because they personally were tired of her. They didn't give a fuck about what it meant or how it elevates another piece of talent or how it betters the show. They didn't care about any of that. They cared about their own personal preferences. And they were just getting tired of her seeing her hold the belt. And they didn't care who she dropped it to as long as she dropped it. And I thought that was so stupid. I'm like, why would you do that? Shayna has been retaining time and time again, building herself up as a more and more credible champion. She's got that MMA background. She's just a badass. you only want to beat her when it's like the right person. And I said that even before Rhea Ripley was even on the radar. I'm like, you got to wait until Shayna runs into that badass that can punch her in the mouth. Here you go. Here's your badass that can punch her in the mouth. Rhea Ripley will be the girl. She absolutely will be. And I'm never this confident about stuff, but I'm confident about this. Rhea Ripley is going to be the person to dethrone Shayna. So when do you do it? You can do it on TV now. In a couple of weeks, have the return at the Royal Rumble, then or TakeOver, Royal Rumble weekend, I should say. Then the next night, if you want to keep Shayna strong, not only having her pass the torch to another badass female, but her not losing any face at the same time, not her being diminished by losing those matches if she turns right around and wins the Rumble and now gets a title shot at WrestleMania. You've now made 2 women. You've now allowed one woman to pass the torch, making someone without losing or diminishing the other at the same time. It's extremely hard to achieve that. And they have a chance to do it here if they follow that scenario, but they don't have to. They can have Shayna beat her on Wednesday or on the 18th. Have Shayna Baszler beat her. That actually might be the more likely option than putting the belt on Ripley. Maybe you have Shayna Baszler defeat Ripley with help. Duke and Shafir run out there, Dakota Kai, whatever. Baszler's able to choke out Rhea Ripley or beat her in some way, or maybe even a DQ if you want to do a DQ. I'm really looking forward to December 18th, so I don't want to see a disqualification. So you do a finish there where Baszler pulls some shit and cheats to win. Then you do the rematch at TakeOver and Rhea Ripley wins it there. And you can still do the Shayna in the Rumble thing. So no matter which way they go here, you have a chance to pass the baton to Rhea and set Shayna on a course for huge things on the main roster in 2020. And that, to me, is the most attractive thing about this whole situation, is that you now have a situation, a chance here to have a great women's feud, great women's match, and a great showcase on TV, on USA Network for a lot of people who might not have the WWE Network or any other way to see takeovers and shit like that, to show them what a women's title match can really be. And if you do a switch, that could be a big moment. I don't think you switch Cole. I really don't like it when somebody loses the belt to a contender that was determined the week before. I hate that. So whoever Adam Cole goes on to face, I hope he continues to retain until 2020. Not ready to see Cole drop the belt yet. But Baszler, for me personally, it could go either way. I'm pretty much going to be okay with either outcome, provided they do what I'm expecting them to do and put the belt on Rhea. If they want to have Shayna cheat to win on the 18th and then Rhea win it at TakeOver, fine. If they want to have Rhea win it on the 18th and win the rematch at TakeOver, I'm fine with that too. I'm literally fine with either scenario there. So that's going to be an exciting night on December 18th. Now, the matches we got this week on NXT were all really good. Like I said, they opened up with Pete Dunne and Killian Dane. Gnarly finish. I think Pete Dunne's on the back of Killian Dane, and he's on the second rope, and he just falls backwards. All that weight right on Pete Dunne. Ouch. And pinned him. Killian Dane got the win in that one. Cassius Ohno issued an open challenge. He's back on American soil here. Guess he's been working some UK stuff. And issues an open challenge that was accepted by Matt Riddle. So these two guys rekindled their feud. I was actually in the audience at War Games last year in LA to watch Matt Riddle beat Ohno in like 5 seconds. So this match was longer than 5 seconds. Man, Ohno is a big boy, isn't he? He has gained so much weight, but he can still wrestle. And it was a fun match, longer and very good. And Riddle, not surprisingly, picked up the win. They had the returning Kushida defeat Cameron Grimes, which was a surprise because I thought they were kind of pushing Cameron Grimes. So Kushida now making his return, coming back from that injury. Him winning here, of course, he's going to win here, but I might have put him in the ring with someone else. Maybe not Grimes, but Grimes is also kind of creepy to me as well. He seems more of like an AEW type of talent to me. But NXT and WWE clearly see something in him, and they've been making an effort to push him, get him over, and run vignettes for him and shit like that. So I still think Grimes has some potential in NXT. Just not sure if I would have beaten him there, but glad to see Kushida back, and I think he can, provided he stays healthy. Damn, I can think of like 10 matches or 10 guys I want to see him in the ring with. Really hope he stays healthy and gets back into the swing. Now, I also want to talk about the main event. We're going to talk about that last year because this all revolved around the Undisputed Era. They were out earlier on in the night cutting a promo. that led to Keith Lee coming out, that led to Tommaso Ciampa running out, and all of this basically just set up your 6-man tag in the main event. It's going to be Undisputed Era, Roderick Strong, Kyle O'Reilly, and Adam Cole. Bobby Fish is on the shelf with an injury, which is not good. I'm hoping he can get back and Undisputed Era can be at full strength, but for right now, he's off TV. So that was going to be a 6-man with Undisputed, the remaining members of Undisputed, taking on Keith Lee, Tommaso Ciampa, and one partner to be named later. Turned out to be Dominik Dijakovic. So that was your big 6-man main event, and it was great. You know, it really was. What was AEW's main event? Oh, Moxley and Janela. I'm going to give the nod to NXT for the better main event. I think the 6-man was a lot better than Moxley and Janela. Moxley's a pro, but Janela, you know, he just still looks like, you know, Janela, dude, come on. I'm a defender of yours. I hate people that say that you're a piece of shit and you don't deserve your spot, but, you know, I completely disagree with it, but at the same time, you do have a contract now with a major wrestling organization. You are on cable television. You are in the big leagues now. I'm just saying a Planet Fitness membership wouldn't be a waste of your time. That's all I'm saying. But I'm definitely giving the nod to NXT for the better main event. A lot of fun, all sorts of action all over the place. My favorite spot of the entire week was when Finn Balor showed up. Finn Balor showed up in the match, starts beating the shit out of everybody. I think he's got a hold of Adam Cole or Tommaso Ciampa, gets him in the corner, and then he backs up to the other corner and starts doing the Bullet Club sign, and it was so great. When he's in the corner, you see Keith Lee, who was previously knocked on the outside of the ring. It reminded me of Vince at WrestleMania 19. You see Balor there, and then you see Keith Lee rise up, and he just comes right up into camera frame. And I'm watching this, and I literally like go, oh my God. I scream out, oh my God, as loud as hell in my living room. Scared the shit out of my girlfriend. Scared the hell out of her too. To see him just kind of rise up, just that big fucking gorilla with that mean look on his face. Damn, I would hate to be Finn Balor. Keith Lee is impressing the shit out of everybody. And even like little things like that are hitting home runs. It reminded me of Vince when he had the match with Hogan. Remember? And he peered up from the apron with the bloody face. It was kind of like that. Amazing camera work and such a great angle there, really telling an awesome story. But the baby faces would actually win because Keith Lee, after Balor's interference and he comes and goes, Keith Lee's able to hit Adam Cole with a jackhammer for the win. And that's when William Regal comes out and makes a triple threat #1 contenders match next week between Finn Balor, Tommaso Ciampa, and Keith Lee. Triple threat, winner of that next week faces Adam Cole for the title the week after on December 18th. So you got Cole defending the title, you got Baszler defending the title in 2 weeks on the 18th. I am ready for that show. In terms of who wins the triple threat, what do y'all think? Okay, Fabe, good to see you in here, my friend. Go check out Connor's channel. He's good people. Happy you stopped by for this nice Saturday afternoon Winged Eagle. But, you know, Lee and Ciampa are, you know, kind of on the same side right now, so they've got to wrestle each other for a chance here. And based on the way we've been seeing WWE use Keith Lee, it feels like he's the shoe-in to win this match, right? But at the same time, I also don't think I'm ready to pull the trigger on Keith Lee. Even though I think he's awesome, I kind of want to wait. You know, I don't want to make any hasty decisions here. Let's wait and see, because this is a triple threat. He can lose without having to take the pin, and nothing's going to happen to him. He doesn't necessarily have to win this match, and honestly, I kind of don't want him to, because if he does win, I also don't want to see Adam Cole lose the title, and I don't want to put myself in a disappointing spot. I don't want to see a match where I don't want Keith Lee to win, but I also don't want Adam Cole to lose. That would suck for me. So I kind of hope it's Ciampa. Next week, just giving us a really good, solid title match on NXT. Great fucking match from top to bottom, takeover quality shit where Adam Cole retains. And then you can move Adam Cole on to maybe TakeOver to take on Finn Balor, and maybe, just maybe, if the reports are true about Vince McMahon really loving Keith Lee, maybe he's the guy you pencil in for the Rumble. He'll be in the Rumble, I would think. Keith Lee, he has to be. And I've talked about the possibilities for The Fiend and Brock Lesnar, and I think we all feel this way, that The Fiend, at this point, will probably go into Mania to face Roman Reigns, which I think that if you do that, you don't need Roman to win the Rumble. He can just get that title match some other way. The Brock belt is the one you have to think about here. The Brock belt is where you have the potential to have an outside person from NXT or SmackDown winning the Rumble and challenging him. Because based on the Raw roster right now, Kevin Owens and Drew McIntyre, and maybe Lashley, but no, probably Drew and Kevin Owens would probably be the only two I would consider to be true contenders for Brock's belt. Not Seth Rollins either, because we already got that twice last year. So Raw, Brock defending the title against the winner of the Rumble, to me, seems more likely because you can put anybody in there. And also, if they're going to have the winner of the Rumble choose their opponent, God, imagine that choice, Brock or The Fiend. And as crazy as it sounds for somebody to want to fight Brock, I think if you're a type of guy like a Keith Lee or a Matt Riddle, an up-and-coming guy that wants to see where you stand in competition, to see where you are as it compares to the greats in wrestling, you're going to choose Brock. He's going to be your measuring stick, not this horror movie villain that's holding the Universal title hostage on the other show. You're not going to test yourself against him because that's a crazy situation. You're going to test yourself against the best fighter, which is Brock Lesnar. So I think the winner of the Rumble should challenge Brock, whoever that is. And the winner of the stupid fucking chamber, which I'm sure they'll do, will face Bray Wyatt, I guess, at WrestleMania. That would be my guess. So if it's going to be that way, Keith Lee might be a fun guy to have win the Rumble because, man, what a match. Keith Lee and Brock Lesnar, yes, please. I will pay money to see that. I will pay money to watch that match happen. So if I had my choice, it's just a matter of if you think that's too soon for Keith Lee. Do you guys think that's too soon to pull the trigger on Keith Lee? You know, he's a big guy too. You want to capitalize on a talent like that when they are at their most athletic. And Keith Lee can do some amazing things in there, but he's not going to be able to do those amazing things for his entire career. He's just too big of a boy, and the older he gets, the less top rope dives he's going to be able to do. So I think with a guy like Lee, you should strike while the iron's hot. And if you can continue being on this role, you know, and winning the Rumble, and don't forget he's got the what is it? The bask in his glory. And then the Cultaholic guys are trying to get us to do the don't you forget about Keith. So if you can get some of these like fan participation chants going during Keith Lee's push, it can be like the new Yes movement. You know, it can be the new yes, yes, yes. So I know it's early December, but you know, right now, if it's going to be an outside person, if it's going to be an NXT person winning the Rumble, my money's on Keith Lee. You know, but I would not have an NXT person win both. So if you do Keith Lee, then you don't do Baszler in the women's. If you do Baszler's in the women's, you don't do an NXT guy for the men's. That's not saying I'm right. They could do two NXT people and say, fuck you, Greg, you're an idiot. We're going to do both. I just don't personally see it happening. So it leaves a lot, you know, to the imagination, because Adam Cole has got a lot of contenders right now. He's got Lee and Ciampa and Balor and some others. So that might be the most fun. Save the Balor-Cole match for TakeOver, you know, when you can maybe even do the Demon. I don't know. But maybe Cole. I want to see Ciampa win the triple threat. I want to see Cole beat Ciampa. I want to see Cole then go into the Royal Rumble weekend TakeOver facing Finn Balor, possibly dropping the belt to him. And I want to see Keith Lee winning the Royal Rumble. That would be some of my go-to scenarios right now. With, you know, the second tier of that, maybe having somebody like a Matt Riddle win the Rumble would be fun just for the possibility of Brock. Maybe you can get Matt Riddle and Goldberg together and put together some type of a match. There's still the rumors of Sting and Taker possibly doing something based on what we saw on Sting's documentary. So WrestleMania, I'm not throwing in the towel on it yet. A lot of people are saying this year's WrestleMania is going to suck. I don't think so. I think we have some possibilities, and I think the NXT and AEW war is going to contribute to the success of WrestleMania, because that's going to make, you know, WWE treat NXT more seriously, which gives us a whole lot of new, you know, contenders and really interesting matchups. And when you think about what Keith Lee and Brock might look like inside the ring, that's going to be some nice shit. I'll take 2 servings of that with extra gravy, please. So yeah, I think things are looking pretty good for the future. We got to talk about last night's SmackDown as well. Man, we're going to go 2+ hours in this podcast. Right on. SmackDown last night, back in my old stomping grounds. Well, not my own stomping grounds. I didn't used to live there, but man, I've been to the Fayetteville Crown Coliseum more times than I can even count. And that's where SmackDown was last night. I believe they also filmed the tribute to the troops there earlier on in the day because it's over there by Camp Lejeune in Jacksonville. My best friend is actually a college professor in the city of Jacksonville, North Carolina. And they did a lot there with the troops and all of that, which was pretty cool. And man, I cannot believe how long that building has been there. It's not a very huge arena, but it's just been a staple there in Fayetteville. And Fayetteville is a dump. God, that town is so shitty. But I have so many memories of going to Raws there. And I just put up a Twitter post the other day, 22-year anniversary of a show that I attended in that building right after Survivor Series, Monday Night Raw, when they did the midget Bret Hart. And Rick Rude had just left, and it was Crush's last night in the company. Jim Neidhart's last night in the company. The Outlaws beat the Road Warriors for their first ever tag team titles. Super historic show. And I've been to many shows. I even saw the Hardy Boys win the tag team titles in that arena as well. So I've been to a lot of crazy and awesome shows in Fayetteville. Always cool to see WWE hit up that venue. And shout out to Bubba Anderson, I think, on Twitter, who was at the show, lives in North Carolina. And you sent me some pictures of the arena and stuff, and I hope you had a good time, my friend. I appreciate all of those updates. But anyway, I talked about The Miz and Daniel Bryan and Bray Wyatt earlier on. SmackDown opened up with a Miz TV segment that was supposed to be Daniel Bryan. He was supposed to be the guest on the show. Last week, we saw him getting his hair ripped out by Bray Wyatt. I think we were all under the impression that Daniel Bryan would appear on TV this week, back to his old look with no hair, and go on to challenge Bray Wyatt at TLC. But that's not what happened. The Miz says that Daniel Bryan's not going to be there. He's not going to be the guest. And he's disappeared. Bryan has fallen off the face of the earth since last week. But The Miz, it's interesting he said this, The Miz has vowed to get to the bottom of it, and he will find Daniel Bryan for us. Now, the week before, he even gave Daniel Bryan like that little pep talk in the locker room, where he was like, you're a big part of SmackDown. I can't believe I'm saying this, but we need you. You can kind of feel like the two are, maybe coming together for a little bit of mutual respect here, and The Miz is trying to put things behind him and trying to do what's best for the brand and all this stuff. So he continues to tell us that in the promo, and that's when Funhouse Bray Wyatt appears on the Tron. And he says that since Daniel Bryan isn't going to be able to face him now, or likely won't face him at TLC, he has invited The Miz to come play instead. And that's when it kind of got interesting, because Bray Wyatt at that point said, he goes, I used to be part of a family. And then it kind of goes through a few video edits of the old Wyatt family that even included Daniel Bryan 6 years ago, right now, right? Or was it 7 years? 2014. What year? I think it was 2013 that Daniel Bryan joined the Wyatt. Yeah, it was 2013. So it was 6 years ago right now that Daniel Bryan was a member of the Wyatt family. And then I think it was the very last Raw of the year. I'm actually really impressed with my memory. This is the type of shit I normally don't remember. I think it was the very last Raw of the year in 2013. Daniel Bryan turned back into a face, right? Turned on Bray Wyatt, left the Wyatt family, and then went on to lose to Bray Wyatt, I think, at the Royal Rumble, and then not be in the Rumble, and then the fans got fucking pissed, and then he went on to win the belt at WrestleMania 30. So Daniel Bryan, they're acknowledging the history between the two, which is great. Thank you, WWE. Little storyline continuity for once. Nice. So they acknowledge that, and basically after Bray Wyatt talking about his family and how he used to be a part of a family, he holds up a picture of The Miz and his family. So The Miz and Maurice and like their two kids, and says, you want to play with me now or whatever? So The Miz leaves, makes a beeline right for the back. He's shown several times during the show. They go to commercial, they come back. He's on the phone with Maurice telling her to lock all the doors. So now they're making it sound like The Fiend is stalking the family. Undertaker Ministry 1999 style or some shit. So he's on the phone with Maurice. He's freaking out. And then he's backstage. He's tearing apart the backstage area looking for Bray Wyatt. Winds up finding, I think, maybe the funhouse area or a little dark area, and finds a picture of his family. And he picks up the picture, and that is when it takes another cool twist here. That's when he's attacked by not the Fiend, but by Funhouse Bray Wyatt. This is the first time we've seen Funhouse Bray Wyatt get physical at all. He's only been doing shit on on the Funhouse. So he then grabs a hold of The Miz, attacks him, hits him with the Sister Abigail on the floor, and they made the match official, I think, during the show, that it's going to be Bray Wyatt versus The Miz at TLC. But on the graphic of the match, it's not showing The Fiend. It's showing Funhouse Bray Wyatt with the blue belt taking on The Miz at TLC. So I'm wondering if that's the match we're going to get. We're going to get Mr. Rogers, Bray Wyatt, against The Miz. And we speculated that that might happen, that we might see the other Bray Wyatt get in the ring. Maybe he doesn't have the same superpowers as The Fiend does, and maybe he's a little bit less strong. I don't know. But the way it appears right now is it's going to be that version of Bray Wyatt. He's going to wrestle in the sweater, and he's going to have his mask off. Now, if he does that, the one good news and the one good thing and the pro and the positive thing coming out of that scenario is no red light, at least most likely no red light. And maybe WWE hears the complaints of the fans about the red light, but given the nature of the character and what they've made the red light to be, you can't really get rid of the red light, So maybe they've decided to do this to balance it out to where we don't get the red light for every match, just when the Fiend wrestles, and maybe that's why they're bringing Funhouse Bray Wyatt into the ring. This is all just speculation. So I think that would be kind of cool to have like regular Bray Wyatt take on The Miz instead. And then you can do all sorts of other stuff in this match. I'm thinking that Daniel Bryan will definitely make his presence known at TLC because we only have one more SmackDown to go. Next week is the go-home show. So maybe Daniel Bryan is absent for SmackDown again. Miz continues to build and does some sort of a segment with Bray Wyatt next week that sets them up for their TLC match. And then in the TLC match, that's when we see Daniel Bryan. And Daniel Bryan could do a couple of things. He could help The Miz, and we could have Daniel Bryan and The Miz forming a bond and a friendship, which would be crazy. Or, like I said earlier in the beginning of the podcast, Daniel Bryan's transformation from heel a year ago back into a babyface now is only temporary, and it's a red herring, and he's going to join Bray Wyatt with the shaved head and maybe become part of his new cult. Bray Wyatt said last week that he was going to debut a new face of the Funhouse. We never really got that. We got the new belt, the $7,000 belt, but that was it. No Liv Morgan, no nothing else. So maybe if Bray is going to start forming a family, he's going to have Daniel Bryan, maybe Liv Morgan, maybe Eric Rowan. We still don't know what the hell's in that cage on Raw, and maybe Bray Wyatt has some sort of an extension of himself on Raw. I think that's a stretch. I think they're trying to move on Rowan to his own thing, but still possible. And Luke Harper, who WWE will not let out of his contract, is healthy and is back on the road, but we haven't seen him do anything. So you could see a Wyatt family reunite at TLC. It's possible with Daniel Bryan joining them, a hairless Daniel Bryan rejoining the Wyatt family. I don't really know. I think it could go anywhere and go in any direction. One thing I do know is that I seriously doubt Miz will be beating Bray Wyatt for the title, but if it's not The Fiend and it's Bray Wyatt, maybe he has a chance. It's like he's not facing Superman, he's facing Clark Kent, so maybe he can actually beat him. He's not going to be impervious to pain. He's not going to be able to keep coming at you the way he was. And it might show us two distinct, different wrestlers, which if Bray Wyatt is regular Bray Wyatt wrestler who's hurt by regular pain and The Fiend is superhuman, why would he even choose to wrestle as himself? Clark Kent isn't saving people, from burning buildings. Superman is. So why would you choose to try to do it as Clark Kent? That's all I'm saying. So anyway, I think the feud and the angle is interesting because, like I said earlier, what I was under the impression of is that the Daniel Bryan and The Fiend feud was a time killer. Just a space filler to get from here to Royal Rumble for Bray Wyatt to have a new challenger and then head into WrestleMania to do whatever he's going to do, likely against Roman Reigns. But in the meantime, he's got to keep himself busy. So a feud with Daniel Bryan gave him a good quality opponent to beat. Now you're putting The Miz in there, stretching this out to where now you could have Daniel Bryan turn heel, or you can have Daniel Bryan return to face Bray Wyatt at the Royal Rumble for the title. So it can go in a lot of different directions, and I am really pleasantly surprised with how well it's going. I was not thinking on the surface that this really would be any better than The Fiend and Seth Rollins, but so far it is, and it's kept us guessing, and that's a good thing. as far as what else we saw on SmackDown, the rest of it was shit. I'm going to blow through these matches pretty quick here. Mandy Rose defeated Alexa Bliss. Alexa Bliss defeated Mandy Rose in a one-on-one match. This was the first match on the show, and Jessica Carr, referee Jessica from NXT, made her debut and refereed the very first match on SmackDown, and I think she was present for the main event as well. Congrats to her on the call-up. Aubrey Edwards is showing her love on social media last night as well. Very cool to see her, make it to the main roster, and she's breaking a lot of barrier. Not only is Aubrey breaking them on AEW, but Jessica is too, because now she's on national TV, refereeing matches. Very cool to see a female ref in that position. Dana, do I even want to mention this Dana Brooke shit? So they showed Dana Brooke backstage in catering. She's approached by Drake Maverick, who tried to hit on her last week, and I think the reason I wanted to bring this up is because of the Batista stuff. Now, we know that Batista and Dana Brooke have been flirting. Maverick says to her, I hear you're going out with Batista, and she goes, yeah, we have a date coming up. So I think that's legit. I think Dana Brooke and Batista might actually be going out on a date here really soon, and that's awesome. I hope they wind up together. That upsets Drake Maverick. Elias then shows up and starts insulting Drake, talking shit about his wife, who I forgot about the wife. I completely forgot that Drake Maverick had her and he was trying to consummate the marriage and the 24/7 title. Totally forgot about all that. So Elias mentions Maverick's wife. Maverick gets pissed, storms down to the ring and calls out Elias for a fight, which Elias gladly accepts. Comes down with a little bit newer music, I think, too. And Elias, by the way, is a babyface now, in case you were wondering. And he just beats the absolute shit out of Drake, and that was it. We also had a Fatal 4-Way tag team match to determine who would face the New Day for the title at TLC. It was the Revival, Shorty G and Mustafa Ali, which is an interesting team, Heavy Machinery, and the Lucha House Party. Revival got the victory there, which I thought it might go to Ali and G, but I think maybe Revival might have been the better choice there. WWE still trying to convince these guys to re-sign their contract, even though I don't think they are, and I don't think they'll beat the New Day at the pay-per-view unless WWE is trying to use that as a bargaining chip. But to me, I don't think putting the belt on the Revival or putting the belts on the Revival is enough to change their mind. It's going to have to be something else. It's going to have to be a lot of money or a lot of promises of success. Otherwise, I think they're going to bounce, and I hope they do. Lacey Evans, who was also a babyface for some reason, she took on a local jobber. Sasha Banks comes out and cuts a promo and on Lacey, and then Lacey gets on the mic and cuts a pretty good promo about her time in the service, because you got to remember, they're right there, in Fayetteville in the Camp Lejeune area. So her talking about her time spent as a Marine and everything was really getting over with that audience, really, presenting her as a babyface, and even fakes out Sasha with the women's right, just pretends like she's going to do it. Sasha falls down. So last week she got punched in the face. This week she got faked out and fell down, and the fans seem to like that. Lacey walks away, and as she's leaving, going up the ramp, she's then attacked by Bayley, and Bayley and Sasha beat the hell out of her on the ramp there. So I don't know. I'm guessing that's going to lead to a match at TLC as well, but I don't know if it's going to be Lacey and Sasha or Lacey and Bayley for the belt. They might want to start with Lacey and Sasha and then go from there. But I prefer Lacey Evans as a heel. But I think ever since the Saudi Arabia show and the emotion surrounding that, and there's been a lot of talk of Lacey, being a mother and her time, spent, in the armed forces and stuff. They're transitioning her into a babyface, and that's fine. It's just, if it was up to me, I would have waited a little bit longer, because I thought Lacey was a pretty good heel. She's very easy to be annoyed with and to hate, and she's snotty and snooty and all that stuff that you want in a heel. So now she's a babyface, and we'll see how that goes. I'm not optimistic. And finally, in the main event, it was Roman Reigns versus Dolph Ziggler. Roman Reigns beat Bobby Roode last week, so now he's facing Ziggler. The whole time, Corbin is in the ramp with all of his minions there, and despite all of the interference, Roman Reigns still is able to beat Dolph Ziggler. Big surprise there. And then after the match, he's attacked by everybody, including all of Baron Corbin's helpers. So Corbin gets in the ring. All of the guys that were carrying Corbin around on his throne get in the ring. Roman's fighting them all off, and as he's on the outside of the ring, about to do some serious damage to somebody reaches from the underneath the ring, comes out through the apron and grabs a hold of Roman's leg or something, allowing Corbin and Ziggler to get the upper hand. So I don't know if the person under the ring is somebody important, or if it's just one of the lackeys that got under the ring. I don't know. I don't know if there's going to be more than that than meets the eye or not. Could turn out to be nothing, or there could be some secret weapon that Baron Corbin is hiding from everyone because he has got to face Roman Reigns at TLC. So Corbin and Ziggler work over Roman Reigns. They get out a couple of pairs of handcuffs, handcuff his hands behind his back, and then hang him and tie him from the top of the ring post, much like Kane did to Shane McMahon back in 2003 when he hooked up his nuts to a car battery. So Roman is hung up there the same way Shane was, but instead of electrocuting his balls, they pull out a couple of cans of dog food. Big dog, get it? Big dog, dog food. So they pull out the dog food, they dump it all over Roman Reigns, and they smear it all over his face. I sincerely hope, for Roman's sake, that was fake dog food, and it was some sort of nasty paste or mess that they made in the back, because if I was getting dog food rubbed on my face like that, I'd be yakking. I'd be throwing up. Even when I feed my cat this wet food that comes in the can, if I get a little bit of that juice on my finger and I just smell it, it literally makes me want to fucking puke. So that's not something I'd be able to do, is getting dog food rubbed all over me. But despite the fact that Roman took a dog food shower, wasn't a good segment, fans shit on it, it was really dumb, but I didn't hate it as much as everybody else. Not a great segment, don't get me wrong. Not a great SmackDown, to be honest with you. But a lot of people are like, oh my God, what is WWE doing? I don't know, man. I mean, it definitely builds heat, and hanging him up and just smearing him and disrespecting him like that. Roman's going to be fucking furiously pissed, because getting dog food rubbed on his face doesn't hurt him, but it humiliates him, and it's a blow to his pride and shit like that. So he's going to want to come out swinging and get some revenge. And he's now got a match booked at TLC with Baron Corbin, which is not a surprise. We knew this is the feud that they were going with. So let's hope it ends at TLC and Roman Reigns just beats his ass, which is probably what's going to happen based on the dog food segment that we saw last night. But if they want to drag it out, oh, that'll be fun, won't it? They want to drag out Corbin and Roman a little further. Whoever that person was under the ring holding Roman's leg, if that turns out to be anybody specific, that person could show up and help Baron Corbin win at TLC. But with the Royal Rumble being on the horizon and both of these guys probably being in the Rumble, I think you just end it here, have Roman go in the ring, spear Baron Corbin, and probably shove some dog food down his mouth for good measure at TLC. That would be my guess. And speaking of TLC, only 3 matches is what we have officially announced. Miz versus Bray Wyatt, Baron Corbin versus Roman Reigns. That will be a TLC match, by the way. Tables and ladders and chairs rule there. And the New Day versus the Revival, who won the Fatal 4-Way on SmackDown. So in addition to that, what are we going to get? We're going to get probably Lacey Evans and Sasha or something. I don't know what Becky Lynch is going to be doing. Becky Lynch was absent from Monday Night Raw, which fans were like freaking out. Well, where's Becky Lynch? I'm like, who cares? We can go a week without her. Back in my day, in the 80s, I didn't see Hulk Hogan every week on Superstars or Wrestling Challenge. It was like once a month. Not a big deal. Becky Lynch misses one show. But she'll probably have a match against somebody. I'm guessing that Kevin Owens and Seth Rollins will have a TLC match. Rusev and Lashley will probably have a TLC match. Like I said, Becky and Bayley may or may not defend their titles. AJ and Nakamura will probably have some defenses. So yeah, we'll get some matches added. But as of right now, a week and a half away from TLC, we have 3 matches announced. So they better get cracking this Monday on Raw and at least announce 2 or 3 matches on that brand alone. Add a couple of more next Friday on SmackDown, and we should be good to go for a full card at TLC. So that is it. That is it for my notes. Let me go over here to the chat before I get out of here. Now the audience is looking a little bit better. See, I can live with over 200 people, but the last couple of weeks, man, it was a low audience. So the 215 of you that are in here right now, if you can do me a favor and smash that thumbs up, you would have my sincere gratitude. I would love you long time if you do that for me. Please hook me up. I know I got to answer some super chats, so let me scroll back here and see what we have to say. Stone Cold 10X, I know that one came in a while ago. Thank you for the $2, dude. I appreciate it. Who you got winning the triple threat on the 18th? I answered that during the NXT discussion. I've got Ciampa winning. I think Ciampa will win that. I think you hold off on Keith Lee and Balor. I think Balor would be a better opponent for TakeOver. Keith Lee would be a better guy to win the Rumble. So I don't want to see Adam Cole drop the belt on the 18th. I don't think it's needed right now. And I don't want to see him drop the title after holding it for this long, drop the title to somebody that that won a match the week before. I'd rather see a feud or something like that. So if he can beat Ciampa, Ciampa wins, and then he faces Cole the next week. Cole wins. Then you go into 2020 setting up your Balor-Cole match for TakeOver. That's what I'd do. But again, if you did that, you're talking heel versus heel. Not sure how that's going to work either. So Stone Cold, I could be wrong about that, but right now I'm picking Tommaso. Michael, proud Patreon supporter. Thanks for stopping in, my friend, and thank you for the $5. Have you ever listened to WWF Radio that they had back in the early 90s? Yeah, I did. Didn't know how you were even able to back then. I didn't listen to it at the time, but I've heard some since. They were trying WWF Radio back then. They were trying to be on radio stations. I don't think I was ever able to get it, but I do know that Jim Ross was a part of that, Gorilla Monsoon, and a lot of times when they would have the pay-per-views, they would also do, it's kind of like now how they have like the Spanish announce team and everything. They would have a radio version to where you could listen to the show, which makes sense because when I was a kid, that was the main way I followed sports, listening to most of it on the radio, because there wasn't like now where you have ESPN, the Ocho, you only had a couple of channels to pick from. So if the game wasn't on, you had to listen for it. So I have heard in later years some of the WWF radio stuff, but I never heard it as it happened. But yeah, pretty interesting little tidbit. Probably less than a year old. I don't think that lasted any longer than, I think it was maybe the tail end of 93 into 94, something like that. And it was scrapped. Stone Cold, thanks again for another one. Keith Lee or Riddle versus Brock. I kind of talked about that too. I think Riddle would be probably the most interesting to me, but I think the Keith Lee match and Brock would be so fun. Jesus, that would be fun. Either match would be fun. I should phrase it like this. I'm fine either way. I think my instinct tells me that Keith Lee might be the better choice just based on the way he's been used the last few weeks. But Riddle and Brock will be fun when and if we ever get to that. All right, and that does it for the Super Chats. All right, I think I am going to get out of here. Damn, we went out about 2 hours and 15 minutes for this podcast. Nice. Pretty solid day. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and get out of here now. Again, just a reminder, couple of programming notes. This coming Monday, I'll be up here immediately following Monday Night Raw for my live Monday Night Raw review. Then on Wednesday, this coming Wednesday, the 11th, brand new classic pay-per-view review will hit the channel. So make sure you stay tuned for all of that. And I will catch you in just a couple of days for Monday Night Raw. Yeah, nice. Excellent podcast today, guys. I appreciate you hanging out, and I appreciate your support. As always, y'all be good. Peace.